Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of How To Wrestling, the world's first wrestling podcast detailing how to wrestling, how to get into wrestling, how to understand wrestling, and goodness knows, maybe even how to enjoy wrestling. Hello, everyone. I'm the big explaining machine, Kevin Mahan, joined as I am always in this introductory guide to the world of wrestling by my better half, the person with whom the fire of wrestling knowledge will always burn, Jo Graham.
Hello.
How are you, Jo?
I'm well, thank you.
And we might as well address the elephant in the room.
That bloody elephant.
How dare you? I know I've put on a little bit of weight, guys.
Well, we are very happy to say for the first time ever we're being joined with a special guest. The world's greatest lover, the world's greatest dancer, and goodness knows, probably the world's biggest Kane fan. It's Adam Bigelow.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for your inevitable appearance on this podcast. Adam is a big fan of today's topic, which is Kane. Adam, if people don't know who you are, maybe give yourself a bit of an introduction.
I'm one of the three members of the AEPodcast, along with Kevin Mann here.
Hello.
And I'm the one in the three of us that's seen a bit of wrestling, but doesn't know as much as you do.
Are you the middle bear?
Yeah, I'm the middle guy. Like, you've got the, I like Billy because he doesn't know anything about wrestling, it's interesting. Or I like Kevin because he knows everything about wrestling, it's interesting. Or there's that other guy as well. He doesn't really have a gimmick, to be honest. He's just there.
He's got something about coffee. Adam, can you briefly explain why you're here today about Kane? What is it about you and Kane that we felt necessary to reach out?
Kane is such a big part of my life. Like, as a kid, like, a big part of why I even liked wrestling was because of Kane. Like, there was so many wrestlers that are just dudes in trunks or whatever, but then there was this big red evil lizard looking man who's so scary. Like, I don't know, I think what helped me fall in love with wrestling was having a character as big as Kane.
Did you find him scary?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? But you loved him?
Yes, it was one of those weird things because I was such a wimp as a child, like scared of the slightest thing. Like, I'd listen to one track from War of the Worlds and then couldn't sleep for weeks. But Kane, I was just sort of enamored with him because, you know, he could be both a good guy and a bad guy, and he'd still be this scary monster. Like,
certainly one of the most fascinating wrestlers ever, and one which we're obviously very excited to talk about. But Kane is someone who's been on the roster, you know, since Adam and I were in short pants. And when Jo started watching wrestling, Kane was actually one of the first guys you saw. And I mean, before we delve into this man's lurid and incredibly convoluted backstory, what were some of your first impressions of Kane?
So, Kane, otherwise known as Corporate Kane, you know, main identity.
This is what Michael Cole has done to new fans. You refer to him as Corporate and Demon Kane, yeah.
He's Corporate Kane, and there's Demon Kane, which is like his dark past, which he seems to have mostly overcome thanks to therapy, anger management, whatnot.
So who was Corporate Kane then in the world of wrestling when you started watching?
Corporate Kane worked for the Authority. Good assistant. I was going to say friend, but let's not push it. With Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
He wears a suit. He has short, neat hair. Always wears a tie. He's there. He's quite clever, I think, but he's always pushed around, and he was often associated with like J&J Security.
So were you a fan of Kane when you first saw him?
I didn't really understand the point of him. He did grow on me. I think the moment I actually really I got what Corporate Kane was all about, and I'm sure I'm completely alone here with you two who know him as Demon Kane only, really. But when he was sent on holiday to Hawaii, that was when I really fell in love with him.
He was very happy when he was given a trip to Hawaii. It was one of the first things you put on Vine when you were first started watching wrestling.
I loved it.
Him going to Hawaii because you had this big scary guy who was like, oh man.
He's not big and scary.
He's never been on holiday. So we'll say off the bat, when you first saw Kane, he did not scare you.
No, he didn't scare me. I still don't really find him scary.
Wow, we're going to delve into the twisted and dark backstory of Kane. Some people have said that this is equivalent to a mad mission, one which we'll never possibly be able to do, because this man has one of the most convoluted backstories ever. And I will say, we have touched a bit on Kane before when we did our episode on How to Daniel Bryan. Obviously, it was someone who you were familiar with, and he popped up there as well. But I want to start us off because Kane was not always Kane. We've got a game of chance for you, Jo.
Oh, joy.
Okay? So our game of chance for you is to guess which of the three following gimmicks that Kane had were not real. Okay? Adam, do you want to maybe run Jo through these different gimmicks and see if she can pick out the falsehood?
Yeah, so your three choices are the Christmas creature, which was Kane in a large green smock with like candy cane stripy arms and legs.
And baubles and tinsel.
All wrapped around him. Mm-hmm. There is Isaac Yankem, which was a dentist gimmick.
An evil dentist.
Evil, wasn't he Jerry Lawler's dentist?
He was Jerry Lawler's evil personal dentist.
Right, yeah.
This was during the New Generation era where you had crazy characters like that.
Okay.
And then there was also Fake Diesel, which is when Kevin Nash jumped to WCW, Vince McMahon said, I can just replace him with another Diesel, and they hired Kane and made him dress up like Kevin Nash.
So which of those three do you think is not a true Kane gimmick?
Well, I hate to say this because I actually have heard a little bit about this previously.
Oh, yeah?
Because I think we did this on What I Learned in Wrestling was the Christmas creature.
You did?
Shit.
Damn!
So I know the Christmas creature exists.
Okay.
But even if we hadn't done it, people send him in all the time. And I'm pretty sure I remember someone posting a picture somewhere of Kane dressed as a dentist. So either you're just getting a picture of him on like Halloween where he's like dressed as a dentist. You're like, yeah, he was totally a wrestler. So I'm gonna go with the Diesel one. I can't believe that they would make him.
Okay.
But having
ludicrous.
said that though, there's far too much detail in your story of this. I wonder if it is actually also true. That
It was a hilarious Christmas prank that we played on you. No, the Christmas creature hasn't come in here cause mischief. It was just Adam and Kevin up to no good. All three of those are legitimate gimmicks that Kane had. The other one that he had as well, which I thought I should mention, was Unabomber. You don't necessarily have a gimmick that is named after a terrorist, but he was also known as Unabomber. So yes, Kane was an evil wrestling dentist.
So,
Now this is the thing that you have to bear in mind, not kayfabe. You know, the wrestlers have had like previous characters and gimmicks and they'll explain them as their backstory. Kane is not Isaac Yankem,
Right.
DDS.
Isaac Yankem.
Isaac Yankem.
Yankem.
DDS, as in
hell.
he yanks your teeth.
Yep.
Do you know what his entrance music was?
I'm sorry, before we go to the entrance, I've just realised that on paper, if he was writing his name, he could just do I Yankem.
Yep.
Fucking hell, that's such a good pun. Sorry.
His entrance music was just a drill going.
Are you serious?
Just that sound effect.
They should have had like screaming as well.
And they would do these backstage segments where Jerry Lawler and Isaac Yankem would be ganged up on this little kid, and the kid would be like, "Oh no!" and Jerry Lawler would be like, "Ha ha! Hurt him! Yeah!" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm a fucking shit dentist. I'm gonna really hurt you."
Jesus.
I've never been scared of the dentist, but Isaac Yankem definitely made me concerned about dentists.
How long did he do that gimmick for then?
Less than a year, would you
Around a
say?
year,
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Really? They dragged it out that long?
He had a main event feud with Bret the Hitman
Are
Hart.
you serious?
Yeah, because Bret Hart had kicked Jerry Lawler in the mouth and messed up his teeth. And obviously Jerry Lawler had met Isaac Yankem through, strong alliances get formed in the waiting room of the NHS sanctioned Isaac Yankem. So Kane was an interesting one for us in terms of trying to find a list of matches to watch. I think I started with you, Adam. I asked you kind of, what are Kane's best matches? And I think we had a bit of difficulty.
It's tough, yeah. It's not necessarily had that many incredible matches, as much as I love him.
It's very, very strange seeing as we did an entire podcast running through all of the Attitude Era, and even with that, and there was a lot of cool Kane moments, but picking out Kane matches was really, really hard. And there was a point on Twitter where I was like, seriously, are there no apparently good Kane matches past 2004? And people were like, But I think our friend Claire tweeted, and she put it best when she was saying it's less about the matches and more about this gigantic muscular wizard who is on screen doing magic all the time. So the first thing I showed Jo, and a very important part, was Kane's debut at Bad Blood 1997, which is one of the most famous debuts ever because he came out in the first ever Hell in a Cell match and he ripped off the door to confront his brother The Undertaker. And of course that is one of the most famous bits of commentary of all time.
That's gotta be Kane!
That's gotta be Kane! Because Kane was the brother of The Undertaker. So The Undertaker, a very famous wrestler, a mythical wrestler who someone will be doing many episodes on in the future.
Familiar with The Undertaker, he's around.
Yeah, he's been around
Every
the block.
WrestleMania he's kind of there.
He's there,
He's gonna be something big one day.
Yeah,
Keep an eye on that guy.
I think, yeah.
I like this kid, this Undertaker kid. So, The Undertaker's brother Kane was sent to destroy him, essentially, by the Undertaker's former manager and Kane's father, the evil Paul Bearer. Now, Adam, for you growing up, what was Paul Bearer like in terms of a character to try and describe him?
Horrifying. So scary. I don't know how you feel about him, Joe, but for me as a child especially, I thought this big scary man with a white face and bags under his eyes, be like, oh, this is the fucking freakiest shit ever.
I just think he's the funniest thing.
Well, that's what makes him scarier, I think, is the fact that Kane's this big hulking monster and he's got like this little Pringles man with him. It's still somehow
He's the evil Monopoly
ghoulish.
guy.
Well, I think there's that Paul Bearer, the one who's got the dark eyes and all that stuff, but the one where I showed Joe a lot of the promos when he was kind of more hellfire and brimstone.
Uncle Vernon looking Paul Bearer.
Yeah, he is quite scary when he looks more like Uncle Vernon.
Yeah.
Right?
We were scrolling through all these episodes of Raw and I wanted to show Joe all these promos of Paul Bearer, and there's just these close-ups of this big round face and his little beady eyes going, "You will burn in the fires of hell, Undertaker!" What did you think of Kane and Paul Bearer's kind of, their introduction? Because they obviously made a big debut ripping apart the Hell in a Cell, and then did a lot of stuff with coffins. I mean, I'm not sure how you felt about seeing Kane as this big monster with these coffins and what he was doing.
So, what, he dug up the Undertaker's parents and then set them on fire. Of course. Of course he did that. And then he smashed their gravestones with a sledgehammer. I don't know, it was a bit goofy, because he has magic powers, and he's able to cast fire wherever he wants. Never uses that in a match, obviously.
But you've seen him throwing fireballs and stuff.
Yeah, well, throwing fireballs is in, obviously, pyrotechnics have been set up in advance and then let off at safe distance.
Kayfabe, mate.
Kayfabe,
Kane is
Joe.
shooting a fireball.
Come on now.
I can imagine if you were a kid and watching it, it must have been amazing.
Yes.
Was it as impressive as I imagine it could have been?
Yeah, because it's so much easier to just suspend your disbelief as a child. Even when I was a kid and I knew wrestling was fake and didn't really care, it was still so much more awesome back then, the idea that this wrestler had powers. I love Street Fighter as well, so the idea of someone whipping out a Hadouken in the middle of a match.
That was great about it, because Kane, when you obviously were watching Kane when you first watched, he was just this guy in a suit, and when we watched 97, 98 Kane, here was this dude, head to toe in red and black, full mask, a weird little eye,
Long-ass hair.
Long, beautiful, frizzy hair. And I loved as well, you had all these times where Paul Bearer would he would hide behind Kane and be like, "My Kane's gonna destroy you!" Oh, I fucking loved it. And I'd say Kane didn't scare me as much when I was a kid, but Paul Bearer with Kane terrified me. When we watched the segment from the Royal Rumble where they put the Undertaker in a coffin and they just covered it in gasoline, they set it on fire, and Kane is the idea of a Kane having magic powers always intrigued me as a kid, but what also terrified me about Kane was that he was a pyromaniac. He liked to set things on fire.
Which makes no sense. I'm sorry, that makes no sense, right? Game of Thrones, the Hound's older brother sets him on fire as a kid. He's got a horrible burned face, like Kane, right? And then for the rest of the show, he's terrified of fire. Kane gets magic powers from fire. That's ridiculous. What if the Hound could set shit on fire because he was burned as a child?
It was a radioactive fire that came as a child.
Bit him,
he gained the powers of the fire. I've tried time and time again to explain to Joe the nature of why it is that Kane and the Undertaker have these supernatural powers. They're demons.
They are demons then.
They're demons.
Well, that would mean one of their parents are demons, so their mother is the demon?
There's a fan theory that Kane and Undertaker are simply vessels for demons that have come from the darkness. And that they've got these powers that they act through them.
Right.
But you've got problems with the magic. Because, we watched, when they do, the two of them are standing on either sides of the ramp and "I will walk through the fires of hell to destroy you, Kane." And he presses his finger and, the Titantron falls over. Or then Kane is "His powers are as good as yours, Undertaker," and then he sets a cameraman on fire. You said you had problems with,
I do and I don't. I love the showmanship of it. I think it's so funny how ridiculously over the top it all is. And I do love that side of wrestling so much.
Do you think we don't get any of that anymore? Is
we
that
definitely
something...
get less, because you've got Bray Wyatt. He kind of has magic powers.
A little bit.
He got out of that locked container with Randy Orton the last week on
how did he do
SmackDown.
that? Yeah.
How did he do that? There was CCTV footage and it went kind of fuzzy and he's gone.
there
Not
you
the
go.
same as setting someone on fire, though.
It bothers me how inconsistently it's used. It is literally at like big pay-per-views. It's like, oh, we've suddenly got a budget. Let's give Kane magic powers.
Yeah.
Would you like to see Kane... Would you like to see Kane use magic in the matches? Is that what you're saying?
But also, it bothers me that he has fire powers, and then, like, in the Inferno match that we are about to watch, he is weak against fire and can be burned.
So
What's
he's not a
that all about?
fire-type Pokemon, Joe.
No,
now.
exactly.
There's a
So
difference
if
here.
he's, but I thought he was fire type.
Was it just a lack of explanation then? Did you want like more of a reasoning behind their powers?
Yeah, I want to know why he's got powers. I want to know why he and the Undertaker both have fire powers, because I can only assume it means they are from hell. Right.
Oh, I always thought Taker was lightning elemental and
Yeah.
Kane was fire. Yeah. Taker's more of a
he did the
lightning
stuff
guy.
where he like made stuff explode. And...
That's true. Yeah, he used Taker would have control over lights and and lightning, because Taker's color was always kind of blue and purple. And it's really fun because when they had like the build up to Kane coming, because Paul Bearer would keep coming out and saying, "Your secret's gonna come. Kane is alive and he's gonna get you." And Undertaker would be like, "What are you talking about?" And all the lights would turn red. So it was like, I don't know, they had kind of strong associations with the colour
The motifs,
and the motifs of it, I guess. But do you know the actual reason why Kane and Undertaker were on the outs? Why they were like estranged brothers? Why it was a big shock when Kane came to fight the Undertaker?
I mean, Paul Bearer does, very badly and very briefly explain it in the run-up to Kane setting the Undertaker's parents on fire.
You lie there with your dead mama!
So, okay, from what I can gather, the Undertaker's parents... No, hang on. Oh, God, this is so fucking messed up. Right, so Kane was set on fire by the Undertaker, and Kane's parents died. They burned to death, right? I think. And then Kane was blamed for it, which makes no sense because he was in the fire and had terrible burns, apparently. Right?
No,
so I don't know why they
blaming him as
blame
well.
the scorched
I
child.
bet Kane had such an Irish mammy,
Oh,
like...
he's an orphan. Let's blame him.
But like he's covered, like he's covered in burns on fire. What have you been playing with them matches again? For fuck's sake, you're all burned up. Look at you, you've ruined your bloody good skin. Look at all them burns. They're not going to come out, and they laugh at you. They laugh at you.
Meanwhile, the Undertaker, presumably fine, is he gets off scot-free and becomes a famous wrestler.
Yeah. The reason was because the Undertaker was able to blame Kane because Kane had all these emotional problems as a kid, and he was like a recluse, and he like tortured animals and was known to be playing with matches all the time.
Wait, but why is he playing with matches if he has magic fire powers?
He didn't have the magic fire powers then.
So
pre-fire,
that came
mate.
So that happened as a result of the fire.
We're assuming it happened in between. So Kane got blamed for the fire because he was known to play with matches.
So he was blamed for his own parents' death.
He was blamed for his own parents' death. But what we didn't know at that time was that Kane and Undertaker's parents, Kane and Undertaker are actually not brothers. They're half-brothers. Paul Bearer is actually Kane's father. But they didn't know that until afterwards.
I'm really confused then. So Kane's parents... Oh, wait, no, that's... No,
So Kane's
Paul Bearer
parents...
is his dad. So
Paul Bearer is his dad. So the only person who was related to Kane that died in the fire was Kane's mother. Kane and Undertaker shared the same mother.
Person?
Undertaker's dad.
Oh, so it's the Undertaker's parents that were burned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and he
that
shares
makes
a
more
mother with
sense.
Kane.
Okay.
And the idea was that Undertaker was under the impression that Kane had died in the fire, but what actually had happened was Paul Bearer had in secret...
Hang on. How can Kane be thought of to die in the fire and also blamed for the fire?
Because Kane was out to play with matches, the funeral home burned down, so it's like, oh, okay, it's him.
At the end of Star Wars Episode 3, like, imagine it's Paul Bearer that comes along and finds Kane's, like, charred body and then drags him
Must
to
have
safety.
set himself on fire. Oh, that boy.
What about Padme? Is she alright?
So
No.
They never actually found a child at this point, presumably, his scorched body.
Paul Bearer took him away and put him in an insane asylum.
So Paul Bearer happened to be there at the time of the fire. Do we not maybe think that Paul Bearer started the fire?
He worked in the funeral home, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
So business, I'm just saying he's going to make some money out of this.
You know, 6 Feet Under,
Yeah.
basically because it was a funeral home. Paul Bearer was like the guy who's like the apprentice in 6 Feet Under. That was his job. He was the guy who was put through.
Well, Paul Bearer isn't even the funeral
No,
manager
Paul Bearer
guy.
was just an intern at the time. And that's how he actually ended up becoming Kane's illegitimate father, because he randomly one night was seduced, he says, by Undertaker's mother. And had sex with her. And also, can you want to divulge the extra detail there, Adam, just so we have the cherry on top of this backstory?
And young Taker walked in on the act while it was happening. And Paul Bearer is like bragging about this with a huge smile on his face, like, little Undertaker came in and he saw everything.
He saw me having sex with his mama. What the fuck?
No wonder he burnt the funeral home down. Like, fucked up.
So who did burn the funeral? Was it the Undertaker?
It was the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Because when Kane first debuted, it was all like, Kane did it, he's a pyromaniac. Undertaker was like, he killed my parents. And then when Undertaker turned heel a few years later, he was like, nah, I'm just playing. I killed my parents.
Literally, the Undertaker burnt his parents alive,
Yeah.
Yes.
then blamed his little innocent brother, who he thought had died in the fire.
What a heel.
Yeah.
And so the Undertaker's parents worked at the funeral home?
Yes, they own the funeral home. Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to get this more piece together.
In this scenario, Undertaker is Nate from
Okay, yeah, so he's
6 feet
Nate,
younger.
and Kane is Michael.
Except Kane is kind of,
Instead of being gay,
he's fire
horribly
powers. Yeah. Instead of, they're liking to go to Fire Island, he's got fire powers instead. Okay,
Right.
so that's a lot of backstory. I think we got it though.
Yeah.
That's Kane's backstory.
Good.
Next
have to
time
go
on
and-
How to 6 Feet Under, we'll maybe dive into another character.
I mean, you gotta grab the nearest HBO show, hold on to it for dear life, and use that to explain every fucking bit of wrestling you can. So we decided the first match to watch with Kane, because we wanted to get across his feud with The Undertaker, which is huge, obviously, but also we wanted to get across the fact that Kane, like The Undertaker, is strongly associated with what we call gimmick matches. Matches that have like a silly kind of rule or whatever to them. And I told Joe we would be watching an Inferno match. What did you think that would be when I told you that at the start?
I mean, I just assumed, I think that, the ring would be on fire or some ridiculous, stupid fucking fire gimmick thing. Which, I mean, I wasn't far off.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty much, they set the ring on fire for this one. So Kane and The Undertaker wrestled at Unforgiven 1998 with the ring surrounded by flames. And this was an interesting one to watch because, you've got Kane here who's got all this mystique, which he doesn't have anymore, I don't think. Because when Kane comes out here, he's all like, the lights, the music, the pyro. He seems, I don't know, he seems like scary with the mask. And what do you think of Kane's look back here compared to current Kane's look?
Oh, I love this look of Kane. I think he looks awesome. And the whole, not talking thing and having Paul Bearer just be his mouthpiece is awesome and it works so well.
Do you know how Kane actually spoke at the time, if he ever did speak?
No, I didn't even lisp. I hope he had a lisp. That would be really cool.
If he had a lisp, he wouldn't have gotten a push from Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon
yeah.
literally
That's
has de-pushed people.
Imagine how cool it would have been, though, have someone badass like Kane with a lisp. It would have been great.
Vince would have played it for yucks.
Yeah.
He would have had him slipping on banana peels. Look at this idiot with a lisp. But no, Kane used to speak with a voice box. So you'd have a little microphone up to
I get
his
your earlier joke now.
yeah. So we had Kane and we had the kind of...
Hang on, I've just it's registered. Why did he have the voice box?
Because he'd been
Wasn't it
damaged?
the smoke had fucked up his vocal cords or something? It's one of the many things they retconned.
Yeah, they
down
quickly
the
went
line.
back on that.
Totally retconned.
Yeah.
Once it went from kind of isn't it really cool when you have Kane kind of go, I will set myself on fire. And then it's like, tonight, Kane explains his feud with X-Pac. You see, me and X-Pac. We're like, for fuck.
So Paul Bearer is quite like a sweet, understanding dad, really, because he's just enabling Kane's odd, erratic behaviour where he thinks he's been horribly burned in a fire.
Yeah.
Voice box.
If you think about what came out later on.
Yeah. Paul Bearer was just like, it helps him, so we'll just let him go with it. Even though it's a bit weird.
Paul Bearer is like... I do want to have to say it again here because we said a lot on the Austrian Economics podcast, but watching stuff back with you, holy shit, what a fucking performer. Everything he does, you were saying how he was such a cartoon villain with his big weird face, and he plays it out, he knows he's a weird looking dude, and he does these weird fucking expressions and his fucking scary ass eyes. I could watch Paul Bearer do promos all day and never sleep because I have nightmares the whole fucking time. Paul Bearer is the cheese snack before bed that you regret when you're trying to sleep.
I think of Paul Bearer as being the really evil version of Paul Heyman.
That's quite accurate, actually, yeah.
It's true.
Even more evil than
Even
Paul.
more, yeah. So we start this off with a very sensitive Jerry the King Lawler having his fire food nearby. He's got his hot dogs, he's got his marshmallows. Ha ha! Someone's going to be set on fire. I love the whole fact that Undertaker was like, I will not fight you. He was like against fighting his brother, and Kane had to goad him into it, slapping him. That's why he like kept digging up his parents and like pissing on him.
I thought at the time, I was like, the Undertaker seems a bit too calm about this whole digging up his parents and setting them on fire. Of course, in retrospect, if he did burn them to death, there's no wonder. Really.
Yeah.
He's probably just feeling mad awkward in the ring, like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, oh god.
I haven't seen them since I, oh boy.
Did I do that? What I do like about this as well, and something you alluded to earlier, Adam, is the fact that this was like watching two demons or two like fucking superheroes. It's like you've tuned into not wrestling. You've tuned into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or you've tuned into some weird sci-fi
Japanese anime or something.
you know. And I'll tell you, like, what kept me around watching wrestling when I first started watching in '98 was, even though it wasn't my favourite wrestler, was the likes of Kane and Undertaker. Because even though I had my favourites, the first person I bought a toy of was Kane and Mankind in a 2-pack, because those were like, they weren't like wrestlers. They had masks, they were weird, they had powers, they were fucked up. I just thought it was amazing.
I have a question, which is, because like surely you both were watching wrestling around the time when it all came out that, oh, it's fake, and kids in the playground be like, hey, you like wrestling, it's fake. Did you not resent Kane and The Undertaker for kind of exposing the business and making it look silly?
No, I didn't care about the business being exposed. Even as a child, it was more sort of like, I know it's fake. Why like my parents told me it was fake when I first started watching it. It's not a big deal that it's fake. Like, it was a tiresome argument.
Because I think both of us started watching wrestling with already kind of going like, all right, yeah, it's fake.
I get it, yeah.
The first time I sat down and watched a wrestling match, literally arms folded. My brother was like, "Go on, seriously, it's great." I'm like, fake. And like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Like, and I was watching, and it was like some random match, and I was scoffing at it the whole time. And then it was literally Kane, Undertaker, lights, lightning. I was like, oh man. And I didn't care that it was fake.
Yeah.
You know, I liked that they were doing this, because if it's gonna be fake,
at least go full out.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, if it's gonna be fake, at least have some fucking fireworks.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, actually. I think it is, if you're gonna go kind of ridiculous like that, you may as well go full hog.
Absolutely.
Because at the moment you have a little bit of that with Bray Wyatt, and honestly it just does seem a bit strange and silly, because then you've got really super serious like athletic wrestling, which is like, oh, take it really seriously, it's such a, you know, elite
it's a sport, it's a contest.
Yeah, sports entertainment. And then you've got magic powers.
Yeah.
I do kind of like, at least within the context of Kane and Undertaker having their Inferno match and everything, it was this kind of silly, over the top world.
They didn't half-arse it like they do with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Like, where he has powers once every few
Sometimes.
months if he feels like
Yeah, it kind of, they were definitely a little bit more consistent with that, you know. I do like at the start when they just light that ring on fire, and this is the visual image. This is a match where there's still images, I guess, maybe do it better justice than the actual match itself, because when they do a big move and they make the light, the fire go up and go like that, and it climbs up the ring, it looks awesome.
It does.
It does kind of, I mean, we watched this one for the AEPodcast, and you can tell straight away there's two men in the ring who wish that he didn't have long hair and had all that kit
loads
on
of
them.
clothes.
Yeah.
And a big face mask.
It's warm.
Were you excited by the idea of the Inferno, though, when you actually understood what was going on in it and how you win? Did you think it would make for a good match?
I thought it would be a bit limiting, but I was really grateful that if it was going to be any kind, because I understand that Inferno matches have happened since, haven't they?
Yes.
So like, if it's going to happen with anyone, I'm glad it's with wrestlers like Kane and Undertaker, who don't do a lot of like rope based moves, a lot of flips and like stuff that would be genuinely terrifying if there was fire there.
Yeah.
I think the wrestlers who don't fart a lot as well, which obviously would
Thank
be quite
God.
an issue. You put Vader in there, like,
I was thinking
the ring's it's a ticking time bomb, like, you know.
I do have a question about the fire though, which is, in kayfabe, is it supposed to be powered by Kane?
No.
As far as I know, in kayfabe, it is literally
just some fire. Like,
Just, like,
they've just set up
pyrotechnic
some...
guns.
because there is a point where Paul Bear goes over and like he starts messing with the pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
That's when Undertaker can't get out of the ring and the fire is too high.
But if Kane has fire powers, why doesn't he just make it all fiery wherever the Undertaker is?
My fan theory for this has always been Kane and Undertaker have
An agreement.
a gentleman's agreement.
Now, no playing with the fire.
we often sip from the same font. No, their agreement. I always thought that they had superpowers, but they had like a mana bar basically, which is basically like kind of like, you know,
potion.
yeah, like they had a mana bar, and if they did too many, like in a match, they're going to do lots of big moves, and if they're doing lots of big moves, they can't be going out doing, you know, fucking fire and lightning.
Yeah, you'd be knackered, man.
Because they'd be knackered. Also, they're liable to be fined because it's against the rules. So,
yeah, get DQ'd, man.
you know, so maybe that was always it. It's kind of like, yeah, I can set the ring on fire, but I'm not gonna, because A, I'll be too weakened after doing it. Because think about it, anytime they set the ring on fire or something like that, these guys with their magic powers, they always just walk off afterwards.
Yeah.
Kind of like, point proven, go backstage. You know, Kane does the fireworks, and there's like all this black sick.
You see a Snickers bar in between. I really see the whole Fraser Crane thing with the Undertaker here.
Yeah, even at this point in time, you can see it.
Well, because I
Something about seeing them in the ring surrounded by fire was like, yeah, you know what? I see.
just the way that I don't know. I didn't really ever understand the whole Fraser Crane thing before. I mean, I kind of got it, the jokes a little bit here and there, but he really looks like Fraser Crane.
I think he's got the brow right here.
Yeah, and the kind of slightly receding hairline and everything. Yeah.
You notice how everyone in this match was just like hot. Paul Bear ringside is like sweating profusely.
I mean, they are surrounded by fire.
JR and King on commentary are like, we are very warm. Let me tell you something, folks. If you don't believe that this is fire, me and Jerry are both incredibly uncomfortable.
I bet everyone involved in the stupid Inferno matches is like, oh, for fuck's sake, another Inferno match. Oh.
Can you imagine being in the audience? Like?
It's August.
Yeah, front row.
As far as I know, after this, they did tinker around with it, because this was very much like the one where you could tell within a minute their hair is sopping wet.
Yeah.
You can see Kane, like the hair flapping that he's sucking the wind.
Fucking makeup all melting off his face.
Horrid in that mask and the full body. Jesus.
Yeah, if you don't know, Joe, actually, if you wearing a mask in wrestling is like, it's really it's a pain in the ass. Because one, your vision is really restricted, and two, you're breathing as well. And if you're a big guy like Kane, I always say I'm very impressed with Kane that, you know, they always call him the Big Red Machine, but he's got fucking stamina, you know?
And how many wrestlers have wrestled in a mask that literally covers your entire face?
Yeah.
Like, no fabric over the mouth. Like, it's like solid plastic over his mouth.
Little slit
tiny
like that.
Little line, and his nose is all
exercise.
smushed. Like, no one else really wrestled in that kind of mask for that many years.
Yeah.
Full time.
He's earned that new mask of his.
Yeah, even if it does look a bit shy, like I think he deserves it at this point.
Do you reckon he was really happy when it got to corporate Kane? He was like, thank fuck. I just wear a suit.
I can cut my hair.
I like that they do the fire effects when big moves happen, particularly the big chair shot we get at one point. Fucking massive big flick of a fire. There are some moments though where it's literally like, right hand. And the fire just kicks up randomly. You were so concerned, because I remember me and Adam watched this together, you know, for the AEPodcast, and we were so fucking jaded by this, because we were like, so fucking lame. But I must say, when I was watching it with you, the fact that every time Undertaker was near the ropes, you were like, oh shit, like the fire is right there. It actually made me realise, with long hair and he's leaning against those ropes.
Because they're only like 3 inches above the flames. And like, if you've ever been near a candle and a stupid kid, which I'm sure we've all been there, you've held your hand above it and you realise it's actually hotter above the flame than it is actually on it. They were probably legit in pain for most of that match.
When you see them run the ropes as well, it's that we always talk about on like our pay-per-view review episodes. Joe and I basically always spend at least 10 minutes talking about how we don't like how Dana Brooke, for instance, runs the ropes. Dana Brooke runs the ropes like the ropes are on fire.
Yes.
Like she runs and stops. It's like, oh shit, gotta be careful. Undertaker is running these ropes that are actually on fire with such fucking ferocity. It's absolutely incredible.
It must be terrifying to wrestle that close to flame.
Yes,
I do have
absolutely.
endless respect for them for that.
There is a phrase which is uttered here which is very synonymous with Kane, which is through hellfire and brimstone. Now, what is brimstone?
I always just, when I was a kid, I imagined just like sort of a red, like magma rock kind of with Kane written on it in big, scary gothic font.
Because Gerald would always say, through hellfire and brimstone, the big red machine and all that.
All I know about brimstone is that it smells funny.
Yeah, it's
Does
like
it?
eggs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It smells like eggs.
It's like that kind of, you get it in like volcanoes, I think.
Right.
You know what I've been absolutely shattered to find out? I always thought it was through hell, fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
But it's actually
Hellfire.
through hellfire and brimstone.
That's so weird.
My whole life.
I was putting a comma my whole life.
Yeah.
You think you know a guy, huh?
Wow. That puts a new spin on the whole Kane character.
Did you like, because Kane hits the choke slam here, and he's also going for the tombstone pile driver, both of which are the finishing moves of his brother, The Undertaker. And Kane also does things like sitting up, like his brother, The Undertaker. I was wondering what you thought it was, like, if you thought it was cool or lame that Kane has basically his brother's moveset.
I think it's quite cool. It wouldn't be as cool if they weren't brothers.
Half brothers, I guess.
Yeah, but like they grew up together, so it makes sense that then they both got powers as well. I like that they have little things in common and variants on the little things.
Yeah, because Kane goes for the tombstone piledriver, he slits his throat using his finger. He go like that. And when Undertaker does it, he uses his thumb. And when Undertaker hits the tombstone piledriver, he puts your hands over your heart like that. When Kane does it, he puts your hands out like that, like you're on a cross, basically, and he pins you like that.
Now, as an older sibling, I'm calling this out as sibling rivalry. My brother used to copy me all the time.
When you did the tombstone piledriver,
and I'd always be like, stop copying me. And he'd be like, no, I'm doing it slightly different, so it's not copying. That's what's happening here.
We have Kane going over the top rope and starting to leave, and inexplicably, Vader appears. But what was really cool about this, and this was a moment which I guess shows you how cynical we were at the start of the Editor podcast that we didn't pop for, but this was huge. When Undertaker did a suicide dive, he jumped over the fire.
Out of the ring. What the fuck?
Incredible image, right?
I didn't realise The Undertaker was so good at wrestling. He's so good.
He's very agile. Like.
He's huge. And he did a suicide dive out of the ring over the top rope.
Over fire.
Over fire!
And then you have Undertaker killing Paul Bearer, like smacking him into a drum. And setting Kane on fire. And actually watching it this time, Kane being set on fire. Something that really scared me, because I only noticed it watching it rewinding on the network. I've seen this match a jillion times. You know the way Kane's meant to lean up against the fire with his sleeved arm, and it gets caught on fire. But what happens first is Undertaker knocks him back, and Kane's normal arm, and you can see him straight away. He retches it back because he obviously gets a burn there. He got burnt on his actual arm.
Fuck.
But I must say, Kane being set on fire and running to the back here, the goal of this match was to be like, and Kane is just kind of like, he had a lot of gimmicks, but it didn't really work, and, it doesn't work in a match. But I think of all the matches we've watched in HT Wrestling recently, considering that most of these guys did was kick and punch, you were actually, Joe, quite like, wow.
I think it's because there were big moves in it that were genuinely shocking. And I think good wrestling matches need that.
Watching it again, was any improvement for you watching the Inferno match?
I was less disappointed because I hadn't got sky high expectations this time. I was thinking, this is going to be a shit match. And then it made me appreciate the little potted moments a lot more, I think. What did you think to the finish, though, Joe? What did you reckon to Kane, walking away with one arm on fire?
I was really confused because I forgot that the whole thing of this match was that you had to set the person on fire.
He just thought Kane was taking his ball and going home, fuck this.
Being a big coward, yeah. It's inexplicably oh, fire, owie, blah.
That makes him a coward, being on fire.
He's a demon man. He's surrounded with fire.
But yeah, they don't ring the bell straight away, so it is kind of awkward. He does just toddle off, really weird.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I don't think Joe actually knows the ending. You can reveal, wrestling secrets exposed now with Adam Biblo. Let Joe know the actual finish.
Yeah, so there's just, I think it's so obvious when you notice it. If you watch this match again, you'll see it, and it's really, cheap looking. There's a point where Kane gets knocked down on next to the apron when Undertaker goes off to chase Paul Bearer. And then when he comes back, Kane stands up, and for a brief couple of seconds, they use as far back a camera angle as they can to avoid it. But for a brief couple of seconds, you can see Kane's arm is suddenly all huge and wet and looks like paper mache. And he's just got this really dodgy looking, crumpled, wrinkly arm.
Oh my god.
Which then obviously just gets... So if you were in the front row, you would have seen it coming a mile away, but... The effect is still cool.
It actually
regardless.
I think what the fact of how they get away with it, I guess, is because you're in such shock and awe when you first see it. Kind of oh shit, guy on fire. Oh god, he got burned. People jumping over the fire. Your kind of heart is racing almost.
Yeah.
You're not expecting to see that.
But if you watch it back again, it is kind of hokey.
Yeah. So there you go. Kane getting set on fire and losing his first match. Did you give this one a rating, Joe?
I certainly did. I gave it 4 stars, which I didn't realise you two were really cynical about the match.
Because the two of them just punch and kick for ages.
Yeah, but it's good.
It's got its moments.
I guess because we've covered a few matches in How to Wrestling, older matches where Jerry Lawler, a huge number of his moves are punching and kicking. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the performance itself, which kind of around that, which makes it a good or a bad match. And it was just the way, Kane does some great acting in this. And I say that fully aware that his face is covered and you can't see any of his expressions. But his eyes, you can see so much in that, and his body language. And I love the story around it as well. It's ridiculous, but it's kind of got an actual story, which is good. And The Undertaker doing that suicide dive was just, that made it for me.
Yeah,
I
it was really
loved
cool.
it.
Well, the thing about this, I mean, we'll probably eventually do a Kane and Undertaker feud episode. You know, we're going to do feud episodes down the line. But Kane and Undertaker, it was a running joke on the Out Here podcast about them betraying each other, teaming up. Paul Bearer betrays Kane, then he's with Undertaker, then he betrays Undertaker, and he's with Kane, back and forth. Literally
the Ross and Rachel of the Attitude Era, basically.
Yeah, we were on a Kane, like, you know, but non-stop from 1998 until 2010, they were non-stop, like, whose side is Kane on? Kane and the Undertaker, I don't know which side you guys are on. It was just non-stop, almost to the point of ridiculousness, I guess you could say. But I think this is like, it was a cool match to watch, an important one to watch, because Kane and Undertaker are forever linked. You'll never be able to tease those two apart, I don't think.
So a couple of months after this, Kane went into a feud with Stone Cold for the championship, and it was sort of like the first time and also the only time for many years that Kane would be in the title picture and like a serious contender. And at, was it King of the Ring?
King of the Ring 98,
King of the Ring 98, Kane versus Austin in a first blood match, so the first person to make his opponent bleed is declared the winner. Kane wore 2 sleeves for this match, so he had 2 red sleeves, mask, full bodysuit, and literally 1 little hand exposed, and that's what Austin had to work with, basically.
Jesus.
So needless to say, Kane obviously won. Like, Austin got all busted open, and Kane won the belt, and like, amazing to see Kane with the championship. And then the next night on Raw, Stone Cold beat him for it and won it back.
Aww.
So Kane being champion for 24 hours.
And that was it for years.
Next time he won the belt was
Seriously?
2010, I think.
Oh,
this was the
my
only time like masked
God.
Kane was the guy. It was for 24 hours.
24
I had
hours.
no idea. I always
Yeah.
assumed he had this like long title.
No,
No,
he
never.
had a bit of a run when he was the champion of SmackDown in like 2010, and literally that was one of those kind of, oh, someone, you know, Edge is injured, let's give Kane the belt. A few months.
That's shocking. I always assumed because he was like this, you know, the big red machine. He's iconic.
He has to win loads of belts.
I mean, wow.
It's another example of like titles not making the career, really, because he hasn't really had any memorable title reigns,
Not
like
really,
even with
no.
the mid-card belts.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
but he's still regarded as one of the biggest legends of like the last 15 years. So.
It's very interesting that you probably can, if you have a strong enough character, you don't need those, you know, those trinkets or those, you know, accomplishments. But Kane, like, around that time as well, what started becoming apparent is that because Kane was just this silent guy, and if you think about it, he was a kid who was just taken away and put in an asylum and was just told that his brother had, you know, murdered his parents, or, you know, murdered his mother, and, you know, Kane was actually, at this point, started to become quite a sympathetic figure.
He went into an asylum.
Yeah, Paul Bearer put him in an asylum.
Genuinely.
Paul Bearer rescued him from the burning wreckage of the funeral home and thought, I won't look after my son, I'll put him in an asylum.
I will put thee in a nunnery.
Not even in an orphanage.
No, it was an asylum, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, for the criminally insane, no doubt. But what was becoming apparent at this point was that it wasn't necessarily that Kane was this guy who wanted to kill The Undertaker. It was Paul Bearer who actually wanted to use Kane as a, you know, as a tool, as a puppet, to go and fight The Undertaker. And then what started to happen around 98, 99 was that all these people were just kind of saying, Kane is this big, strong guy, and he's a fucking moron. He's an idiot. He can't talk. He doesn't know right from wrong. We can get him to do our dirty work. And you had Vince McMahon, you know, getting Kane to go beat up Austin for him. And you had Undertaker who's like, you're my brother, you have to do what I say. And Undertaker, as a bad guy, would get Kane to do his dirty work for him. And it actually ended up making Kane this really sympathetic figure. And he ended up becoming a huge face around 1999 because it was like everyone could relate to this guy, this outsider who had been taken advantage of and just wanted to wrestle and wanted to kind of have a normal life and was just made to do all this horrible shit.
Aww.
It was like when the Rancor gets killed in Return of the Jedi, and you're like, hey, he's actually not that bad, he's just a guy who's been made to do bad things. And what we got in 99 was Kane getting his own little girlfriends and stuff like that.
Which is so weird to me to think that Demon Kane can have girlfriends.
Yeah, you can have girlfriends. Do you know who the first person who Kane had an on-screen relationship was?
Don't tell me it's like Stephanie McMahon or someone.
No, someone we've done an episode on.
Trish.
Nope.
China.
Yes. Kane and China, yeah.
Now that, if they'd done like an actual, did they ever do like a sort of tag team thing? Because that would have been awesome. I want to see that. That'd be great. They're both like monsters. It's fantastic.
And it, like most of Kane's storylines involving women or people being his friend, involved him being betrayed at the end.
Yeah.
Aww.
And the next one which we decided to watch here was, looking at Kane's on-screen relationship with Tori, who was his girlfriend for a while. And we decided to look at Kane taking on his former best pal, who then betrayed him, like all of Kane's friends. You can see why people kind of gathered to Kane.
We've all been betrayed by a friend.
We've all been betrayed by supposed friends.
Who hasn't been fucked over by X-Pac in their life?
So we decided to watch a match which I remember on the AEPodcast us gushing about. Because a lot of Kane's matches, unfortunately, throughout the Attitude Era involved him versus Undertaker or him versus Big Show. And the problem with that is that Kane is someone that looks tiny because he's working with the Undertaker, who's the same size, with the Big Show, who's bigger. This match, Kane versus X-Pac in a cage, and X-Pac's this little fucking creep who's harassing Kane and his girlfriend, and Kane's going to kill him inside of a cage. Big monster who's twice the size of him. This is, I think, one of the moments where Kane actually got a chance to really shine. Because he is actually a lot better wrestler than people give him credit for.
I mean, I think the issue with him fighting Big Show and The Undertaker is less to do with size, although I will give you credit that there is a little bit of that to do with it. But I think mainly it's the fact that all their styles are far too similar. They're all slow, lumbering, punch, kick.
Let's go over to the corner and do some punches.
Yeah.
Whereas X-Pac, he's a flip-de-doo kind of fling him across the ring and it'll look awesome and he'll dive outside and shit. And I think you need that kind of dynamic. You need a bit of variant.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
are your thoughts on the dynamic of like having the big, massive face against the tiny little cowardly heel? Because like really, the deck is stacked against X-Pac here, so you should be sympathetic towards him. But
there are some people who think that you can't do this. You can't have a big, scary monster good guy and a little tiny bad guy.
I think those people lack imagination and empathy. Because I think maybe because I'm going out with Mr. 6'5" giant nice guy here, but like I'm fully aware that big guys don't have to be terrifyingly scary and evil, and little guys don't have to necessarily.
It's about time.
It's about time. All these tweets. Ooh, Kevin, I love your podcast, but you're so fucking scary. You know, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
I mean, yeah, it's an understandable trope, isn't it, of the big heel and the little face. But I think it works the other way around if you just have some empathy.
I think so. Now, this here, in my opinion, is best colour scheme Kane, where he's got the black and the red reversed. I fucking love that. For me, this is best Kane. Yeah. This is best Kane with the black and red as opposed to the red and black and the backwards mask. I think it's fucking awesome.
Well, you're wrong, but it's up there. It's one of the best ones. Like.
So your favourite Kane is Inferno match Kane?
No, my favourite Kane is the one we'll get to in a bit. He's in the Royal Rumble match with his vest.
So vest Kane. Best Kane is vest Kane.
Absolutely.
Which I must say, we'll take this moment to say, Dan, our illustrator, that artwork for this, my God.
Sexy.
He's done it so well. You know,
Fucking
Kane
incredible.
is Dan's favourite wrestler?
It shows because there's passion and love in
There's
that
a lot of
picture
love
right there.
in that.
So we have Kane taking on X-Pac inside of a cage, and X-Pac is being a jerk. He's like, "Hey, what do you got a girlfriend? What are you, gay?
Having girlfriends is so gay.
Tell your old lady, keep calling me at night, man. I'm like hanging out with my buds. I don't want no girls calling me. What are you, gay?"
How can anyone think that X-Pac is anything but the heel when he's like literally like harassing Tori
when he's
so
wearing
much.
that hat as well, isn't
He's
it?
such a dick.
He's so lame as well. He's
Yeah.
like, I might decide to pin Kane. Hit him with the X Factor.
Might do Bronco Buster.
I didn't realise until this match as well that his finisher was called the X Factor,
Yeah.
which I fucking hate. I hate that.
I hate wordplay.
Especially think of Simon Cowell.
I like that Kane is a gentle monster who wants to save his lady friend. You know, it's a nice little story here, which is like Tori is kind of, you know, she's been harassed by X-Pac, and Kane is like literally no ifs, ands, or buts. He's going to kill this boy for what he's done, and I just love the ferocity which Kane goes after X-Pac right from the go here. You know, and he's so big compared to X-Pac in this. He dwarfs him. It really makes Kane seem like this big, strong monster, because Kane is a lot bigger and a lot stronger than I do think he gets credit for, you know? X-Pac runs around the ring at the start. He's terrified of Kane, and once he's in there, he's like a pinball. You know, Kane is throwing him about. X-Pac is bouncing all over the place. He makes Kane look like this unstoppable force.
It's kind of like one of those little, you know, the little sticky men that you get and you throw it at the wall and you go blip, 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 all the way down. That's X-Pac.
It's kind of cathartic to see that, because there's so many times when you're watching Attitude Era stuff where it's like, ha ha, he's being a dick. And then Jim Ross is like, oh, that sucks. And that's it.
Yeah.
No comeuppance.
Oh, you've forgotten the Jerry Lawler comments.
And Jerry Lawler's like,
we got a lot of here,
Oh,
by the
fuck,
way.
yeah, he is on fire in this match.
At the beginning of the match, where
Kane's penis? Mine's huge, seriously, but Kane.
At the beginning of this match, Kane escapes the cage to go get X-Pac off Tori. And Lawler says, she set him up. And Ross goes, what do you mean? X-Pac approached her. And Lawler says, yeah, but you know what women are like, and she's a tart. He's literally blaming Tori for X-Pac harassing her and then Kane getting punished as a result.
You know what women are like. We've all read my court documents. We know what they're like. We know what they're like.
This is one of those instances where his misogyny is so big that like it's not even remotely veiled. Like not even slightly trying to hide it.
It's even slightly overshadowed by the number of dick jokes that he makes about poor
How's
Kane.
meant to do both? Like, it's like, you know, when one minute you're kind of like, oh, fucking women, man. They're like, let me tell you about dicks for a second. Yeah, I got a cracker of a dick joke here. Oh, look at that fucking woman. Anyway, come here. About Willie's, as we were saying, his is tiny, mine is massive. It's
his withered, burned, tiny crisp.
me,
Mine,
no burns.
meat sausage.
Perfect. The best penis. We just become Donald Trump
Yeah.
all of a sudden. Like, the best penis. I love the moment, even though it's quite distressing, when Tori's running to the ring and she's like, you know, trying to save Kane or whatever, and then Kane gets he's handcuffed to the cage and Kane has to watch as X-Pac, like, he spits at her, he hits her, it's fucking vile, but Kane is like, and he like rips the handcuff off and he goes over to, you know, oh god, I fucking love that.
Amazing storytelling.
Yeah.
Really, really great. And I love as well the part where X-Pac thinks that he's escaped and Kane just puts him on his shoulders. He's like, back we go. And he fucking slams that cage door. Oh my god.
That's so cool.
Now, a moment which we get in this match, and it's something which is fucking incredible. Kane has got these moments of athleticism, and Joe's been watching, you know, 50-something-year-old Kane really wearing out that left knee, trying to hold out for that bump reduction scheme he's got going on there. And you certainly ain't seen Kane with these feats of athleticism. Were you surprised to see Kane dive off the top of the fucking cage in this?
Yeah, that was fucking, oh, wow.
I
That
mean,
was
Kane,
amazing.
I mean, Kane does these random athletic moves. I think I showed you earlier Kane doing a Hurricane Rana.
Yes!
Yeah.
What the hell?
What the fuck? Like, he'll pop out and drop kick now and then.
He's so good at those.
He can do his top rope clothesline.
I
you know.
really like that he does that because I like appreciate the fact that it's thanks to him only doing those moves infrequently that A, makes them seem much more impressive, and B, meant he can wrestle through his
Exactly,
50s.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Kane's athleticism, you won't have seen it in these two matches because they're gimmicky, but have you seen in any of Kane's regular matches the way he will exit the ring? Because that's one of my favourite fucking things about him.
He goes backwards, he puts his arms out.
Yeah, he leans back against the ropes, puts his arms over it, and then just literally flips over like
Oh my
backwards.
God.
And he does it perfectly every time.
It's real cool how he does it. I absolutely adore
You
it.
don't expect this huge man to suddenly go "Woo!" like that and just flip
It's
backwards
like
out.
something Charlotte would do.
Yeah,
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
a real, like, athletic little... He's nimble. I think is what Kane has
I
got.
love how him and The Undertaker are surprisingly nimble.
I think that's why they're so successful. If you're that big and you're athletic and you're strong...
They probably put it from their mother. Paul Bearer isn't very nimble.
Yeah, Kane not doing bad seeing as he's got the Paul Bear genes in there,
I
you
know.
know? He's doing a good job. So Kane hits the tombstone piledriver on X-Pac and wins a very vindictive match, a very kind of heartwarming moment to see him stand up for his lady. Did you give this one a star rating, Joe?
I did, and I feel bad because I know you both loved this match. I only gave it 3 stars.
Oh, okay.
But the stuff with Jerry Lawler constantly harassing on Tori really put me off this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the cage match rules, I find so confusing. I lost track so many times.
yeah, it
Because
was convoluted.
How to win.
X-Pac was allowed to escape or pin, but Kane could only win by pinning,
Pinfall,
and it was confusing.
It was very confusing.
It was, and it wasn't maybe as explained as well as it should have been. Again, that's added to there. You get these kind of silly gimmicks, but these two would have a very, very long feud, which. Unfortunately for Kane, he gets saddled in with a lot of gimmicks and a lot of storylines that kind of start off well or mean well and then kind of get a bit weird and stupid. Kane and X-Pac had a match, and the stipulation was if X-Pac won, Tori had to spend the holidays with him.
Oh, for fuck's
Yeah,
sake.
genuinely.
Yeah. So,
won?
X-Pac.
Oh, are you
Naturally.
serious?
And then
Naturally.
Tori fell in love with him and betrayed Kane, like everyone does.
But I think that one of the main reasons why we probably love this match so much is because if you watch the whole storyline and understand, like Kevin was saying, that Kane's been dicked over time and time and time again, to finally have like a feel-good moment where Kane like, fucking kill that little prick, like destroy him, and like him and Tori go off into the sunset together. Even though it didn't last, it was amazing to have like
as an isolated
one
moment,
happy ending for once.
Because Kane has nothing but sad moments for him
all the time.
You know, it's always just kind of has a sad ending for him, and that's kind of why I guess he's such a sympathetic figure.
See, I didn't really realise that.
Yeah. I think one of the most overwhelmingly requested matches for us to cover, at least for you to see, and we won't go through it blow by blow because it's quite a big match. It'd be a bit weird to go through it all. But we certainly want to talk about the performance of Kane in the 2001 Royal Rumble, which in terms of one match, a guy solidifying his gimmick and showing off what he can do, I think this is like, you could just do How to Kane looking at this Royal Rumble match in 2001. What were your thoughts on watching Kane's over 1 hour being in this match?
Yeah, God, it was really long for him, the poor guy. He did well.
He set the record for eliminations that year. He eliminated 11 people, I believe it was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of knew what to expect with this because when we first got 2K16, I played as Kane in a Royal Rumble match.
Yeah.
And I actually lasted about the same amount of time.
I think you actually got the achievement for breaking the record on the game for a number of eliminations.
Accidentally. Yeah, I thought it was really awesome and great storytelling as well.
Like, he comes out when there's a celebrity in the ring. Drew Carey, who is now my next surefire pick for either President of the United States or at least, you know, House Representative. I mean, imagine, it just makes sense. WWE Hall of Famer, that's a sign, seal of approval. It's the way to go these days. But when you've got Drew Carey in there and all of a sudden the fireworks go off and out comes Kane and JR just goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If you'd never seen Kane before and that was your first introduction to him, straight away, you know, this man is all business.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, Drew's trying to give him money and like he's like a big old pork chop and Kane's gonna eat him and then kill him. Other moments in that match which really stood out when he's been surrounded by all the nerds from the hardcore division. There's like 6 guys all beating him up, all ganging up on Kane, like taking him down, like, Argh!
Yeah.
And then he just manages to rally and he gets the bin and starts fucking smashing them over and over again. You really got behind Kane in this.
Oh, I really did. It's such like a classic story though. It reminded me of like the end of Beauty and the Beast when the Beast is like being shot down by Garcon and his hunks, and you're like, no, the Beast. And you know, he gets brought down to one knee and it's sad. His body language is so good.
So he's such a good performer, isn't he?
He really is, and it's such a skill that you either have it or you don't. Like he just does it so well.
There's so many wrestlers that don't wear masks and have their like entire body to work with that convey less emotion than Kane can do with just one arm exposed on him. Like.
I wonder if that's partly why he's so good at it though, because he had to.
Sami Zayn has that as well. Because Sami Zayn worked under a mask for most of his career, and he kind of uses the body and he kind of gestures a bit more. It's not that Kane's over the top though.
No,
not
at
all. It's just the right amount. It's terrific.
Like there's the moment in this match which like is there certain moments when someone's getting into wrestling and it's just magic. And I think when Kane was all being beaten down and he was on his own and it looked like he was so helpless, and then the Undertaker came out and you just went, ah!
Well, I called it, first of all. I knew that was going to happen.
But his big brother comes out and he saves him and they like work together, and I thought, oh man, there's just, you know, moments like that make wrestling like just fucking brilliant.
That moment where they've cleared the ring and there's just the two of them left and they look at each other and they both just like put their hands on their hips like, what are we going to fucking do about this now? Poor little Scotty Too Hot, he comes out like...
And it comes down right to the wire, like Kane is the last one in there. Yeah. His hair has gone particularly mad at the end.
Worth noting as well, normally in these kind of matches, people will go out for periods of time and come back in. Kane is pretty much the entire hour he's there.
He's present,
in the ring.
like,
yeah, constant presence.
Because they had Roman break this record a few years ago, Roman Reigns.
He's vanished.
Yeah, most like
had a nice nap.
At the end, of like Roman Reigns, he broke the record. I'm like, really?
Did he?
Like, he literally just random moments just popped over, eliminated someone, then went back to sleep. Like, but Kane was such a story, and the Royal Rumble 2001 is one of my all-time favorite matches, just because there's so many stories going into it. But like, I think at the end when Austin was there with the chair, and even though Austin was the big good guy, and you were just cheering him on, like, kind of, please, come on, Kane, I know you can do it. And Austin just fucking him with the chair at the end, and it's like, and Kane, like, Jerry Lawler does such a great job here at the end, I think, when Kane is like, he makes Kane out to be a monster. Even he's been in there for an hour. He's like, he won't even leave his feet.
Yeah, he won't fall over.
I love that. And Kane finally goes out. Austin, like, with all the momentum, gets Kane over the top rope in the end. And, like, Austin has a look at his face like he's just taking the biggest shit ever. Like, whoa!
I love how difficult it is to get Kane to get off his feet. I love that. And I say that fully aware that I've criticised people like Big Show before for never coming off their feet.
There's a way to do it.
There's a
Exactly.
difference. There's either I never leave my feet because I'm terrible and I can't leave my feet, or I never leave my feet because it's telling a story and it's making me out to be some sort of Goliath.
And then there's also, we've got their money, brother. I ain't leaving my feet. And Kane isn't any of those. But like Kane has managed to give himself longevity.
Yeah.
You know, we mentioned him putting the knee out for taking the bumps. Like he does do that, and it does, like, but it gives him a bit of length to his career. It's
Definitely.
smart, you know.
And the fact that it means so much more, like in the Royal Rumble where they all gang up on him and they finally bring him down to his knees. It's like seeing a lion captured by zookeepers. It's like you really like, no, he's finally been caught, and it's heart-wrenching.
Haven't seen those moments now that someone's been watching with Kane and X-Pac and Kane and Taker and Kane the Rumble. Is he like a completely different guy for you to the Kane which you've been watching on the modern show? Because I mean, it's not as if there's ever been moments really with modern Kane where it's like kind of holy shit, you know? I mean, were you surprised that he was this good?
No, well, I'm always surprised when he does yes and no. It's a really difficult question to answer because I wasn't surprised in some respects because I'm well aware that obviously he was Adam's favourite wrestler and Kane is often regarded as, one of the longest standing, most iconic wrestlers. I figured there was a reason why he's such a merchandising, powerhouse. But what did surprise me was how he throws out those moves every so often and his body language and his expressions, little things like that, which I think I just really appreciate them so much.
I don't think he can go now like he could back then. There's no doubt about that. But I think what you'll always find is that if you got anyone who was a fan of Kane growing up, that's like something you never outgrow. Because we got so many tweets where it's like 13 years old, yada yada yada. Here's my Kane story, fan for life. I always remember when I was at WrestleMania 25, and the guy who sat in front of me didn't make a peep the whole fucking night. He sat there with his arms folded. He never stood up. He never raised his voice. He never cheered. He never booed, except one moment. It was the Money in the Bank ladder match. Kane was one of the guys in. It's just another guy. And there was one moment where Kane reached his hand up and put his fingertips on the briefcase. The guy stood up and went, yeah! Yeah! And then when Kane got hit, he went, fuck it. And he sat back down. Not another peep the rest of the night. That was the man. That night as well included Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. And he was still like, fuck it, Kane didn't win. I don't give a shit. So you will find, because I think of performances like this, and because of Kane's first 3 years were so good.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of got like the wrestling equivalent of tenure.
Yeah.
I mean, I do wonder if he could still do some of it still.
He's in his 50s now.
But,
I don't know.
I mean, without maybe the Hurricane Ranas and jumping over
He
the
can
top
still
rope,
convey
like
the emotion.
the body language, the emotion. I mean, he's a clever guy, Glenn Jacobs. I'm sure he's capable of doing some of that still. I
was going to say, do you actually see any of your modern knowledge of Kane in any of this? Are there moments where you actually can recognise that it is him under the mask?
Yeah, I'd say, I can in bits. Less so when he's got the whole beard going on.
I think a moment from recent memory that stood out, I remember when you and I watched it together, Joe, it was during the Brock Lesnar-Seth Rollins feud. Brock Lesnar broke Kane's ankle when Kane was trying to protect Seth. And they did the whole thing where Seth was like, you're useless, Kane. And Kane was literally in tears, his ankle broken, kind of going... And he still has that ability to do that, that emotion. You can tell the wrestlers who've got that.
Yeah.
Just that extra level of acting or whatever you want to call it. I love it. Now, we've been talking about Kane being great and Kane being brilliant. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why Kane is probably as iconic and well remembered as he is almost as much, I wouldn't say almost as much, but definitely a lot for his less than stellar moments. The fact that the three of us are in this room being able to talk right now, and I still have a girlfriend to do this podcast with, is very strength and testament to our relationship, Joe, because we have just an hour ago watched the Katie Vick saga with Triple H and Kane. Do you want to tell the people at home who maybe are getting into Kane, Joe, who is Katie Vick? I mean, Katie Vick was a name you heard so much, right? Because
Yes.
everyone kept saying, even when we first started saying, hey, we're going to do Hate Your Wrestling, people were like,
Katie
ha,
Vick.
Katie Vick. Even
Yeah.
before we mentioned Kane.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to introduce my girlfriend to wrestling. Puh, Katie Vick.
Fun fact, I heard of Katie Vick before I heard of Shawn Michaels.
For fuck's sake!
Before I heard
Thanks
of,
a lot, Twitter. You fucking priorities, man.
Before I heard of X-Pac, before I heard of Trish Stratus, before I heard of Kurt Hennig, Kurt Angle, Daniel Bryan.
Fucking hell.
What I love about this is like when we finally sat in to watch this, and when it dawned on you that Katie Vick wasn't a wrestler or a real person.
That blew my mind.
Fuck, like she's a Sister Abigail kind of all of a sudden.
Yeah, what the hell?
So what happened with Katie Vick then, Joe?
Oh, God. Do I have to relive this so soon after just having watched
Well,
it?
you can tell Kane's version of events, and me and Adam can do Triple H's version of events. 'Cause
Leave me out of this. Jesus Christ.
I've had enough. I'm out of here.
So, okay. Triple H comes out and he's all like, Kane, you may seem like a nice enough guy.
You know, choke slamming your brother onto his dead mother's corpse.
You're grand and all, but...
But little does the audience know about your dark, dark past.
The other dark
He's
past.
not referring to, burning anyone alive.
Or his dark
stars,
present.
Yeah, anything like that. No, he's referring to a time when Kane was a teenager, and I can only assume that he was dressed in full Demon Kane gear, aged 14 when this happened.
According to Triple H's footage, he
Yeah.
definitely was, you know. Sorry, wearing a t-shirt saying Big Freaking Machine.
Yeah.
Is that a real Kane t-shirt?
Yeah. That
Oh,
existed.
man.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a joke when he had Big fucking idiot.
So, yeah, he comes out and he's all like, when are you going to tell them about Katie Vick? And Kane's like, oh, God, no, not Katie Vick, obviously, like we all are. And then he tells the story about Katie Vick. So what happened was Kane was a young teen and he was at a party and Katie Vick was there and she was drinking. And she asked...
Can you imagine?
Children.
She asked Kane to drive her home. Now, at this point, I thought, oh shit, this is going to be a horrible date rape story, and it's going to be really upsetting, and it's going to turn out that Kane's horrible.
Heaven forbid. This is an
Heaven
upsetting
forbid, like-
storyline.
So, yeah, he drives her he tries to drive her home, and then something runs out into the road. I imagine his vision must be at least partially obscured by the mask.
Oh, you missed the best part. Kane, like in the ring, cutting this promo, and kind of going. The best line that Kane, in full Kane mask and regalia, has to say was, "I wasn't familiar with a stick shift, but Katie, you know, that was her car, and I had to drive myself."
Fucking hell.
Easily manipulated, even from a very young age, clearly,
Yeah.
into driving stick shift. We've all been there.
Consistent with the character, at least.
You will drive an automatic car like your brother. You will never use a stick shift.
So then, yeah, something runs out into the road. Kane swerves and crashes, and he gets off lightly. Basically, he only breaks his arm, but Katie Vick is unfortunately immediately killed. He ends the story there. Triple H goes on to say, "Yeah, but you haven't told all of it, though, have you? What else happened?"
Oh, tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
And then out comes Triple H's version of events, I guess.
The semen version of events. There were beer cans everywhere. There was semen found in her body. And Kane has to basically listen to Triple H go, "You're a necrophiliac, more or less."
I mean, Jesus.
Now, I'll be the first one to say, we covered the Attitude Era, right? And there's a lot of grisly fucking shit along the way. And they never went there.
No.
They never went there.
Because why would you? It's wrestling. Why would you ever consider necrophilia being involved anywhere near an angle?
It's an odd build-up, though. He doesn't straight away go to the necrophilia thing. He says, rumours were you were drinking at that party as well. So the clear implication there is you must have been drunk driving, right? You weren't safe to drive. And then he goes on to say, the people inspected her dead body, they found your semen, which is a strange word to hear in wrestling.
That is not a word I don't think I'd heard before,
Yeah.
on wrestling, like semen, yeah.
So at that point, I thought, oh, my theory is right. He's a date rapist. Gross. No. Then Triple H goes on to say, but was the semen there from before she died or after?
Triple H has obviously got the CSI Miami box set. It
Clearly.
is 2002, he's just fucking enthralled by that shit, just obsessed with semen and DNA and all that.
And then next week he comes out and he's all like, "Oh, I've got this video, and you need
Oh,
to see
secret
it."
footage.
Yeah, secret footage of Kane, and it's shocking, and you'll never love Kane again when you see how horrific it is. And out comes Triple H dressed as very young Kane in jeans, wearing Big Red Machine t-shirt and mask.
How long did you think it was actually Kane for?
A full minute.
Oh no.
I really did think this was casual Kane.
For me, he lost me when he opened the door and went, "It's me, Kane." Totally not Triple H in a mask.
So he goes over this coffin, and there's this weird fake looking lady in the coffin, obviously Katie Vick,
In a cheerleader
Yeah.
in a
outfit.
cheerleader outfit. So
Everything about this is weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't take umbrage with that alone, Joe.
how old is Kane supposed to be here, and Katie Vick?
Kane Vick, they're meant to be like young kids, so I think Kane might be like 19, 20.
Like seniors or something.
Yeah,
aren't
they,
Like,
they did give a date for this on the...
They sure did. My birthday.
Oh
My second birthday. I was turning 2 years old as the Katie Vick segment aired.
Yeah. So Triple H, obviously, a man who knows his dates quite well, takes off all his clothes then. He does actually say...
Literally all except for a little white thong.
I think the camera tries to avoid his white thong, but they capture his white thong.
Yeah.
He does say, like, "Ooh, I'm kind of feeling a bit stiff here myself." I'm going to call bollocks right now. He did not have an erection.
No, I didn't. I was looking for it.
I was looking for it as well, all right, because I knew that line was coming. Like, I'm gonna, you know when you know the gimmick is coming, and you just look at the penis the whole segment long.
See, now, Undertaker and Kane were very good actors, and if they were doing the segment, they would have actually given themselves a full hard-on.
They would have done it hard.
Yeah. Triple H hasn't got that acting ability, though. He's just an amateur.
So he decides to have sex with the mannequin, and then the mannequin's brains come out.
Yeah. He screws her brains
He
out.
screws her brains out and squishes the brains and throws them into the camera, and it's horrifying. By the way, when he's having sex with Katie Vick, dead body, it cuts away to this montage of like floating candles and shit, and you can hear him fucking her in the background.
That's compromise with Vince McMahon is what that
You can
is.
literally hear, like, if you listen really carefully, you can hear Vince giggling, I think.
Vince McMahon's like, "Vince, what are we going to do? WCW's closed down, ratings are sagging, Rock and Austin have left, no one likes wrestling anymore. I've got an idea. We're going to have Triple H have sex with a girl, but we're going to show it. Everything." Pure Dennis Reynolds, and then they got to the compromise. We'll show close-ups of the candles.
She can be dead, I guess.
Fine, but I want to hear the noises. I want to hear them screw. And then you have Triple H with, is this our Grunt of the Night?
Absolutely. Grunt of the century, perhaps. It's so good.
Yeah, what a sick freak. What is that?
I have no idea.
I think that noise is just Dean Ambrose as a noise.
Do you reckon that Triple H was made to do this segment from Vince McMahon? Who was like, "If you want to marry my daughter, you're gonna really fucking work for it, mate."
You gotta fight her 7 evil exes and then have sex with this mannequin on live TV. What were your thoughts on that segment, Joe?
What do you think they were, Kevin?
Were you shocked to see this? because you've seen some of the worst shit, obviously, so far. Just like, how can this happen? Do you think they would have stooped this low? Do you think this was above them, beneath them, I should say? Or, did it surprise you that, yeah, they did a necrophilia thing?
I am not. I'm not surprised. In fact, if anything, I'm surprised they didn't take it further. I was surprised that you could hear all the noises.
Yeah.
But honestly, I thought it was going to turn out that Kane legit did all this. Instead, it just turns out Triple H had sex with a mannequin, which isn't so bad.
Next week, Triple H should come out and beat up the mannequin on TV. And they did sell the mannequin on an auction on WWEauction.com. And it did come with, apparently, because I think it was WrestleCrap.com, they bought it at the time, because it was such a bad segment. But all the stuff you get on the auction site comes with a certificate of authenticity, which was signed by Linda McMahon. So Linda McMahon had to get the mannequin that Triple H had fucked. And that is definitely
My
it. That's
son-in-law.
good job. I'm proud of this company. Now, Adam, for you, I know you had stopped watching at this point, had you?
Was that why?
No, I stopped watching for many reasons, but I still caught draft of this when it happened. It still like came through whispers like, "Oh, you heard what Kane's been up to on wrestling?"
Semen.
It was like big news. It was like, "Oh yeah, Kane's a good guy now," and "Oh yeah, Kane's got a new mask where you can see his mouth through it, and his mouth's not burnt at all." And it's like, "Oh yeah, and Kane fucked this dead woman in a coffin." Like, these are the little glimpses of like wrestling news I was catching every now and then.
There's kind of moments when you kind of hear stuff like, what? This oh, I gotta go watch again. Because there's only 1 month I stopped watching wrestling. And then I heard like Shawn Michaels won the belt. I'm like, I have to go. So I gotta watch again. I don't think Kane having sex with a...
No.
This reaffirmed my decision to take a break from wrestling.
Once
Did
you're
it
out, you're
make
out.
you very angry and upset to see kind of your hero wrestler like treated like that in a storyline?
No, not at the time, because I was so apathetic towards wrestling as a whole back then. It was sort of like, oh, that's a shame, but I wasn't particularly impassioned or upset about it.
How do you think that child you would have reacted if he'd seen that segment?
I would have been so, like, not upset, because, like, obviously child me doesn't have the same values, isn't as offended by things like I am, but I'd still be really weirded out, and it would probably put me on, like, I imagine I'd like take a week off of playing with my Kane toys.
Because I don't think you can't watch that and kind of go, oh, I want Kane to get his revenge on Triple H. I just don't want this not to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
It was weird that it just turned out to be Triple H being a dick, though, because I did assume when I heard all about like Katie Vick being
What
a thing,
what did you think Katie Vick was when you first heard about it?
I
all the
had
time?
heard rumours that there was something to do with necrophilia. I didn't know Triple H was involved at all.
Yeah.
Like, that was completely missed from anything I'd like heard at all about it. So I assumed when we started watching this segment that it would turn out that Kane did literally rape a dead body.
Isn't that weird how, like, this is one of the big blemishes on Kane's career, but not
Triple H.
H's?
But I don't get that at all.
People
Yeah.
always point this going to go, oh, WWE was fucked back then, or God, Kane had shitty storyline, but no one ever goes, geez, Triple H was a fucking idiot.
This
He was the one in the
damages-
coffin.
Yeah. It wasn't Kane. I know he said it was me, Kane, but it was Triple H.
You can tell from the big nose and the chin.
The mask is literally like kind
Yeah.
of barely covered.
Protruding.
I mean, you had stopped watching, Adam, obviously at this point, but I mean, like, were there any kind of particular moments, because we're going away now from classic Kane into other Kane, for lack of a better term. What were the Kane moments for you, I guess, you know,
it
growing
was things like he's tag teamed with RVD and they make weed jokes and stuff. The Katie Vick thing, and then the unmasking and the huge tidal wave of disappointment. Because that was one of the first things, like, bits of wrestling news I heard that made me really go, like, what? They did what to Kane? And I like, did go out of my way to look it up and, like, find it and see it, and then, the feeling of, like, underwhelm and like disappointment. And
because with the unmasking, it's obviously strange for you, Joe, because obviously Kane wasn't masked when you first started seeing it, but when you and I were first started watching wrestling, Kane was, you know, the mask, and all you knew was there was a fire, horribly disfigured. They had done like one or two things before where, like, you know, Vince and his bad guys had, like, you know, taken a picture of Kane without his mask, and he was like, oh, we're going to show everyone this picture, and Kane was like, oh God, no. And they're like, oh Jesus, he's fucking hideous, he's disfigured.
So they were all lying.
yeah, well, they spent literally like 6 years building up that Kane has a disfigured face.
I mean, did you always want to know what Kane was like under the mask?
No, I never. Well, like I remember a friend of mine had
oh God, yeah,
a
yeah,
limited edition figurine of Kane that had a removable mask, and this was back way before he'd unmasked. And I remember being like really cautious about it because I was like, I don't want to see Kane unmasked, like, because he's Kane and it's like awesome. I don't want to see his gross face.
I heard loads of people say that the reason why they never unmasked Kane is because Kane was played by multiple different guys.
Yep, I remember
that
having
was a
that
big
theory.
schoolyard theory that Kane was played by different guys, and the guy who debuted was not the same as the guy who, like, you know, feuded with
It's
X-Pac.
so clear though, watching it back, it's literally
It's
just
definitely
the same
him.
guy.
Obviously,
Could not,
yeah.
obviously
Why
not be.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Listen to them grunts, like, you know, a grunty man he is. But I mean, we got to talk about the unmasking, because it was like one of the biggest moments that they've built up to, and it came out of the feud with Triple H. When Kane finally unmasked, it was in Madison Square Garden, which is WWE's like kind of big home base. It's the big fucking arena in New York City. That's where WWF started. It's its home bed. So if something historic happens, it has to happen in Madison Square Garden. Kane unmasking, pulling off that mask. What were you expecting to see? Because, I mean, were you confused to hear that he was meant to be scarred and burned up all along?
Yeah, I mean, I heard that quite early on into watching wrestling. When I first, I think, saw Kane, and then you probably told me then that he was supposed to be horribly burned. It's like, well, that makes no sense. He clearly isn't horribly burned. Here's a very nice-looking gentleman in a suit. So, I mean, I expected when he took his mask off to see Corporate Kane, like
Yeah.
just literally him with his short hair and his nice face. And...
We got something different instead. We get, I mean, how would you best describe this when Kane removes his mask and his hair as well?
It looks like, you know, in Mario Kart when you get the squid ink you in the face. Like, he's got the black mush all over his eyes. Like.
You know what it looks like to me? It looks like they've turned him around and they haven't decided yet whether or not they're going to have him be burned.
Yeah, no, genuinely, I think that's right.
Yeah.
It's like the kind of, maybe, no.
Can we get away with face paint and prosthetics?
I heard rumours in 2000. I remember hearing rumours saying that they wanted to do an unmasking of Kane, and they were going to do these prosthetics and special effects because someone in WCW had been doing it at the time. They had like this, like, oh, I've been horribly disfigured. Look at this weird scar thing. And then apparently they decided against it because they would fall off in the match, or they didn't have makeup that would last the whole match.
Yeah.
So obviously, when they get to this point, they're kind of still deciding. And they have him a bit of a mush on his face. And what ended up becoming the story was that Kane had the mask on for so long and never took it off, that what you saw was the filth of the fact that Kane had never taken off his mask.
Oh, that's cool.
That's why he looked like that. And his hair was all weirded up like that because, yeah, he obviously had, you know, he had his hair burnt in the fire, but it was all superficial burns. So, was the unmasking disappointing for you, Adam?
Christ, yes. Unbelievably disappointing.
What did you expect?
I didn't expect them to do it. I think the disappointment came from the fact that they actually did do it.
Because there's a swerve, isn't there, when they do it? Because he's almost about to take it off, and then I can't remember. It's like Shawn Michaels jumps in, and
Triple H
like,
beats him
oh,
up,
it's not going to happen.
And
then.
you think no, they won't actually do it. But like, because any rational person would know that Glenn Jacobs has not got a burnt face. So if they do the unmasking at some point, they're going to either have a really shitty gimmick face or it's just going to be some regular dude. So just don't do it. Like, don't waste your time on either of those options.
The likelihood of WWE hiring an actually disfigured person, never going to happen, unfortunately.
Never.
Even though it would be awesome.
And the only way they could have done it satisfyingly, I think, for a Kane fan would to be like he takes his mask off and he is like a monster, and like, you know, you look at him and you go, ah, like you're horrified.
He pulls his skin off.
But it's
like,
just this guy with like ink on his face and this weird little patch of curly hair. Like, I think it was just really awkward more than anything.
Now, what I think is so interesting about this is that I did 2 tweets yesterday. One was coolest Kane moment, hashtag #HowToKane. The other one was lamest Kane moment, hashtag #HowToKane. And the only one that was consistently on both, like loads of times lamest, loads of times coolest, was the unmasking.
That's really
we had
interesting.
people go, that was so lame, it was so disappointing, and I had people kind of going, oh my god, like the distortion they did on the camera and the zoom in, I was like, holy fuck, man, he's so scary.
I think it might be a generational thing, like
Maybe.
depending on what generation of wrestling you were into. Like Billy Keeble, he loves Kane post unmasking. He thinks that is greatest Kane ever.
Really?
So yeah, I think that he's not alone in that theory either.
He is a completely different character at this point, though.
Yeah.
Because the next thing we watch, a pivotal moment. I mean, this is the Kane we're talking about now, Joe, which would have been when Kane took on Shane McMahon. You know, the guy who sits down in a black t-shirt and he's like, hello, Shane. He's not kind of a quiet, you know, dude anymore. He's this evil sociopath. He's kind of meant to be like a scary monster from a movie.
What point does he stop using the voice thing?
Oh, he way back in 1999, he literally just started saying like, "Hi, I'm Kane." Just there you go.
Didn't ever explain.
No.
Okay.
And had he stopped using powers at this point as well?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was more like I like gasoline, and I was
Yeah.
like, you know, we did the thing with Shane. He literally poured the gasoline inside of
Yeah,
a
he's got magic
dumpster.
powers. What the fuck?
No, he's got a match now, mate. Is what he's got. You
The
know?
mask was the source of his
Yes.
power.
Yeah,
you see,
like the mask.
Just like the mask in the mask.
So something we had to watch because it's very pivotal and it's very, very important was Jim Ross interviewing Kane about his unmasking, because Kane had put on the towel over his face and he's like, I'm hideous, no one look at me. And JR is like, well, what I see here is someone who's obviously got a lot of emotional damage, but you got no scars, Kane. And Kane is like, you're like the doctors. The doctors I had to hurt. Is that a good retcon?
No.
No, it's not, is it? It's simply one of the many cases of WWE kind of going, look, if you remember back that long, you're a fucking loser. if you remember back that long, we'll tell everyone you watch wrestling. How would you like that?
I think it could have been done well. JR did a great job with
Oh
those.
yeah, he was so nice to Kane.
Yeah,
Like,
and he genuinely tears up at one point. Like, you see welling in his eyes.
I love the bit they actually do. That he does kind of go, you know, people aren't going to... Kane's like obsessed with people laughing at him, making fun of him. JR does this moment where he's like, you know, no one's going to laugh at you. We've all supported you your whole career. You just hear this kind of applause starts building up. You know, everyone starts clapping their hands, going, "Yeah, we fucking love Kane. Like, you know, we'll support you through all this." And then
Please turn face again.
please, please do. And then for his troubles, he sets Jim Ross on fire.
Yeah.
Did you expect to see good old JR get lit up like that?
No.
He set his bum on fire.
Yeah.
That's if we didn't already give out a grunt of the night, that's another one right there.
Yeah.
And Steve Austin's in the ring going, "Oh, stop it! Don't you set him on fire! Oh, he's done it! Put him out now! Come on!"
That was very strange, having Steve Austin then come out to the ring, not this entirely different city.
It's a weird one to explain to new fans, because I have to try and explain to Joe, Adam, about how if something is happening on the screen, if you turn to the camera, automatically it's like a Skype call.
Pretty much, yeah.
You can interact and hear everyone in the audience in the arena, in the
it's
ring.
amazing the technology WWE had back then.
For decades now, yeah.
It's amazing they can do that, and yet they don't have a proper search feature on the network. It's quite incredible. Like, bring back some of those guys from 2003, you know?
About the segment, I mean, like I said, I think it could have been done well. But the fact that, I don't know, they had this kind of a whole emotional trauma and a kind of an interesting angle, I think, of the idea that Kane did spend his entire life thinking he was horribly disfigured.
So he's just like, I am burned, I'm a monster.
Which, I mean, it's not impossible that could happen. I mean, it's perfectly plausible that someone could have a mental health condition, which means that they do genuinely think they're horribly, horribly burned. Especially if you went through that as a child.
Yeah.
But the way they did it in that interview with Kane with the little shit towel on his head, looking so silly, sounding so silly, I don't know, it just didn't work as well as I think it could have done.
What are your general feelings, having watched, you know, we're going to watch obviously now Kane and Shawn Michaels from Unforgiven 2004. You've obviously seen a bit of this Kane when he was feuding with Shane McMahon and just some of the kind of chaos that he was causing. It's a completely different character. This bald Kane with no eyebrows, who is like, he's not this quiet guy. He's a guy who's talking about how much I love suffering, and he's completely different.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? It literally seemed to be once he lost his mask and he becomes this dick.
I think it was just this idea to like revamp him.
Yeah,
you know, because he had gotten a bit stale around the time when Katie Vick was happening. I remember distinctly being sick of Kane because they had done loads of lame stuff with him, like him trying to be kind of like, they broke his kind of mystique too much. Like you mentioned him, he did this segment with Rob Van Dam making jokes about weed. It's like, hey, I found a smelly skunk in my basement this weekend. Dude, I found a smelly skunk as well. I totally smoked that.
If they didn't call their tag team relationship thing Blaze It, I am furious.
Missed opportunities.
Yeah.
I think the moment for me when I knew that Kane needed to be revamped was when he was reading, it was like a Playboy or a Divas magazine.
Oh,
do you remember? Tell Joe, go on, Adam. I'm not doing
Kane
that.
sat backstage looking at a nice Playboy, like, you know, doing the thing where you turn it sideways.
Whoa.
Whoa.
This was centerfold in a month, huh?
RVD comes in and is like, what are you doing? And Kane's like, hey man, just because my face is burnt doesn't mean the rest of me is. Like, points down at his package.
And they did things like him doing Booker T's Spin-a-Rooney and be like, freaks are cool, man. And it's like,
Jesus.
It stopped being kind of people rallying behind this figure and became like, hey guys, it became like Poochie, like, you know, just trying too hard.
They could have saved it with the unmasking. I think they could have done it well. If they'd done the whole sympathetic monster Kane, you know, who's been manipulated his whole life, if they'd done the whole unmasking thing and it turned out that, you know, he had this emotional trauma, thought he was horribly disfigured, it could have been a real sad, touching moment.
Yeah, it could
where
have
it's been
been
like, oh, that's horrible, you know, he's this horrible, abused man, and we all think he's a nasty monster, but actually he's gone through this hardship. It could have been a great face gimmick.
I think instead they just decided, let's go with full evil, like, there was a horror movie that came out called See No Evil where Kane was like basically being Kane in it. Like, it was the
Kane was in it?
Yeah, no, it was the
Hang
first...
on, in See No Evil, which
See No Evil.
I've heard of that film.
Yeah, that's Kane. He's in
I've
that.
not seen it. I've heard of it.
Yeah, no, that was one of the first WWE movies, and the
I
idea
wanna
was
see
that the best thing is I'll show you the picture of, we'll put up on the Twitter of Kane attending the premiere in his gimmick outfit, like no top on him, like here I am, like, you know. Also, as well in that movie, for some reason, apparently the director came out and said that Vince McMahon insisted that they write in a line where they said that Kane has like a 3-foot penis.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Vince McMahon.
Insisted.
That's just it. But Kane, for better or worse, became this different character. What do you think he looks like with the half-shaved head, the no eyebrows, the weird eyes, the laughing, and the I don't know.
He definitely looks scary, I think.
Uncle Fester is what
Yeah.
it was like. I didn't find him scary. I remember distinctly not liking him at this point. But he did do, looking back now, comparing to modern product, Kane was doing some fucking awful shit, like electrocuting testicles. And the quote from the start of this match with him and Shawn Michaels from Unforgiven, "I will feast on the fear of the innocent, for that is the sweetest taste of them all." He's kind of jumped the shark a bit here, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, Kane has had many relationships, but this one here, which he has during his feud with Shawn Michaels, is Kane and Lita with their demonic marriage. "You are now my property, my favourite piece of property, and I can do with you what I want."
Yep.
What do you think of Kane being the owner of Lita?
Remember when Kane was a poor, abused man? Sympathetic, teamed up with The Undertaker.
I hated this whole angle.
I think this is actually worse than Katie Vick in
Yeah,
terms of,
I think so.
content, like, because there's a real woman who is like being
An
put
established
through
wrestler.
an established wrestler who has had to put up with some muck in terms of storylines before this already.
You just don't need to bring in pregnant
It damages
storylines.
Kane
It does.
as well.
Yeah.
It does.
Like going forward and looking back, it makes him seem like a complete tool. And as corporate Kane today, who is supposed to be at least a little bit sympathetic, all
Yeah.
this shit.
Yeah, I think like when you look back at these moments, it's kind of like, can you genuinely expect us to cheer for this man when I kind of go 6 months ago, oh Jesus, we had an angle where he like essentially tricked a woman into marrying him and then raped her and made her pregnant. It's like, you will give birth to my demon seed.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't go to watch this match because of the Lita storyline. I came to watch this match because I like showing Joe Shawn Michaels matches, because Shawn Michaels can get the best out of anyone. And honestly, Kane, in terms of standout matches, it's a fucking slim list once
not
we get
many.
past it. I didn't
Yeah.
want to do just Attitude Era matches, but it was slim pickings. Everyone was just like, Royal Rumble 2001. I was like, okay, non-Attitude Era matches. And everyone said 2002, late 2001. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it doesn't count.
is it that he hasn't had any good matches in the last 10 years?
I wouldn't say that he hasn't had any good matches. I'd say it's more just that, like, I don't know, no one really thinks of specific matches with Kane. It is more like sort of blocks of time, like segments or
Yeah,
feuds.
he's
like,
more about the goofs and the chicanery
story.
than the actual in-ring action
Yeah.
itself. Is Kane scary here?
Yes, I think so.
Out of all the Kanes that you have seen, where would this one rank? Because for me, I think this is worst Kane. Billy thinks it's best Kane. This is my least favourite Kane.
Well, it depends what you're judging it on. I think this is the scariest Kane.
Well, enjoyability, I guess, to
Well,
watch.
then worst Kane. I don't like scary Kane. I like sweet Kane with the mask and in Royal Rumble where he's being taken down. It's sad.
We showed Joe Kane smashing open the
claw machine.
claw machine,
Yeah.
helping the
That was
little
nice.
kids.
So
So
cute.
sweet, like.
Oh, remember that? Before he raped a woman?
Yeah, well, she is his property, according to...
There you go, then.
Fucking hell. So, Shawn Michaels is signed to this match, and Kane comes out, literally dragging his wife, and it cuts to Shawn Michaels, who, for lack of a better term, does a face. He sees Kane dragging out his wife, who's pregnant, and he just goes, I don't like that, you know. Shawn Michaels obviously not approving of what's going on here.
What's weird as well is that Matt Hardy is somehow involved in that. I guess Lita is in love with him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Matt Hardy is that guy from the Delete videos.
he is,
Yes.
yes. Lita's marriage was put up on the line in a match against Matt Hardy, Kane and Matt Hardy, so...
Wait, she's married to what, Kane at this point?
Yeah. But so the only reason she's married to Kane is because Kane beat Matt Hardy in a match where if Matt lost, Kane got to marry Lita.
Lita had to marry Kane.
Why? How is Matt Hardy qualified to...
Well, that's how it's done, isn't it? I mean, me and Adam were going to have a match later, so I mean, there's a good chance, not a 60% chance. No offense, mate. Like, but I reckon I can take you, and then I'll win the right to marry you. Is that not how?
Yeah. And if I win, then the status quo just remains, like
know.
if Matt Hardy would have won.
That's just the way it is. Like, maybe Shawn Michaels will pull a face. That's how marriage works. I've always assumed.
But like, who did Lita agree to this?
She agreed to it because Kane basically threatened to kill Matt if she didn't agree to it. It's
Right.
wrestling.
Kane is vicious, basically.
yeah.
Why didn't she just be like, no, fuck this, I'm calling the police.
Because I think in wrestling, once it's in as Cesaro would say, once it's in between these 4 ropes, anything goes.
How come as well, once this happens, she becomes completely fucking useless. This is Lita, bear in mind.
Yeah, but she's got her hand on her stomach. She's like,
all the time.
you know, she's got her hand on her stomach, you know.
It's just so strange seeing her dragged around by Kane.
That's really
Like,
unfair.
I know he's a big guy, but her character, from what I can tell, has always been brave, doesn't take any shit, fights men.
Yeah, it's true, and it's. I find this a very uncomfortable storyline, to be honest.
Fucking weird.
Really, really weird, because Lita can't make this thing work. And I mean, there's weird things as well. Like, you got Kane in this match hiding behind his pregnant wife.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? You're meant to be a monster all of a sudden, you know. You do get some great fucking psychology in this. Shawn Michaels knows that Kane is this big guy, and all that Michaels is always trying to do, he does all these moves where he's like literally like last bit of energy, bam, gives him a big punch and like falls over doing it. Kane will never leave his feet. I fucking love that. Kane as well has another one of his ridiculously athletic moves. Did you see his big leg drop he did in this?
Oh my god, the height!
Whoa!
He got up like full Kane height.
Yeah.
That vert.
Amazing.
From standing, like.
Yeah. JR and Jerry are like kind of, oh, they got big feet. Jim Ross claims he's got size 18 feet.
Fucking hell.
I don't think that's real somehow. And Jerry Lawler's like, you know what they say if he's got big feet? And Jim Ross just goes, big socks. End of discussion.
Shut up, Jerry Lawler.
Shawn Michaels wins Gloop of the Night in this one. Do you see all his spit shots? He gets punched.
Gross.
Love it. Love it indeed. HBK does an amazing job making Kane look like a monster here. And I do love there's a moment where Kane gets knocked down, Shawn gets knocked down, Kane sits up, and Shawn does his little kip up at the same time as well. And Kane, like, he's got, for a man who does a lot of punches and strikes, and there's a lot of wrestlers who do lots of punches and strikes, but he does a good punch and a good kick. Like, there's a point where Michaels is going for Sweet Chin Music and Kane just, like, fucking kicks his head off. Like, he's got a real, like, force behind his moves. You know, you do feel like he's got a bit of power in there. I must say, I really enjoyed this match. It was the one that was a bit surprising for me in terms of, like, Kane having a bit of pace in him, doing this match with Shawn Michaels where it wasn't all just big moves. There was a bit of psychology going on there. I did like it. And the sequence at the end where you've got Kane going for the choke slam and Michaels reversing it, and then Michaels just kicking him in the face and then quickly rolling over him, getting him in this special pin because Kane is obviously such a big monster. He has to be pinned this way. I think if everyone treated Kane the way Shawn Michaels does here, when you've got a wrestler who's like kind of, you're special and we need to make that apparent in this match. I think a problem with Kane is that he's wrestled so much and so few wrestlers have done that for him. A lot of wrestlers have actually made Kane look less than stellar, I think, in a lot of those matches. Roman Reigns made Kane look like a fucking twerp, I think. He squashed Kane so many times in the last few years. And I think it doesn't take a lot to make a guy look a bit special. Give him his fucking little bit of a moment in the sun here. I really like this match, though. Shawn picking up the win here. What did you think, Joe?
I gave it 3 stars.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't find it that good. I mean, yeah, I agree that you're right. Shawn Michaels does bring out the best in Kane. But that shit with Lita, I can't. Honestly, it tarnishes it so much. At one point, Kane gets beaten up. And Jerry Lawler says, I'm sorry, but Jerry Lawler literally does bring down the rating of my matches by him just talking.
That's fair.
Yeah. He says, Kane won't feel too frisky after that. Which he is literally referring to the rape of a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
But Kane won't feel too frisky. It's just,
This does get worse, this storyline.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Well, what happens after this is that Kane has a little bit of a face turn. Because what happens is that Lita's kind of, she gets picked on by like Trish Stratus and some of these other female wrestlers, like, haha, Kane's your husband, he's gross.
Haha, you've been horribly raped.
Yeah. All women hate each other, dog. So we have Kane then is kind of like rushes to Lita's defense and he starts defending her and like he beats up like Trish Stratus's guys who she has going after Lita and all this stuff. So you have this moment where the two of them start to like have a bit of a bond. And then comes the point where they realise, hang on a minute, we've got a pregnant Lita here who's not actually pregnant and we're running out of prosthetics. We're going to have to try and wrap this up somewhere.
No,
there was a wrestler named Gene Snitsky who in his debut match, they did an angle where he accidentally, he hit Kane with a chair and Kane fell onto Lita. And Lita had a miscarriage. And the worst thing about that was that Gene Snitsky became a heel after that. And he came out and his catchphrase was, "It wasn't my fault." And his music even would start off going, "It wasn't my fault." It's like, oh, here he comes, that guy, pretending like he didn't cause a miscarriage. You did, oh boo!
As a quick side note, to just sort of really hammer home the quality of the writing here, a couple of weeks after that, Lita's in the ring, like, doing a really heartfelt promo about everything that's happened to her.
Lost my baby, so on and so forth.
Snitsky comes out with a baby in his arms, like, you can hear it, he puts the microphone, you can hear it, like, gurgling and stuff, and he's like, hey, look, Lita, I've got a baby. You don't have a baby, do you? And he's like, did your baby have a name? And it's like,
you can't have this baby.
So
it's
inappropriate.
my...
And it goes from being so really dark and uncomfortable to suddenly Snitsky punting the baby into the crowd. Like, he just kicks it straight in, like
a football.
Hell.
So, like, Kane, I think what's worth noting with Kane, for all the amazing moments he has just been roped into some utter shite over the years. I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that Vince and Co have always viewed him as like, he's our monster, so we can do all these crazy horror movie angles, and you know what?
That's such a boring 2D way of
Yeah,
Seriously.
it is. And I regret the fact that when Kane had this extra chance and he got rid of the mask and he was in fucking great shape as well.
Yeah,
Look like a
ripped.
fucking beast, you know. He was wrestling with no shirt on for many years. And I think they kind of wasted him a bit. He had his peak here in many ways. He was, you know, not too old. He could still do all the Kane stuff. He was given a chance to finally do promos. And anyone thinks back to this time, they think miscarriage with Lita, Katie Vick. That's all they think of Kane from this era.
It's so hard as well because, like you were saying earlier, Adam, Kane's whole thing is like he's good at the storytelling and the performing and less of the wrestling. And okay, yeah, he's had some okay wrestling matches, I guess. But when the stories are this fucking shit,
You got nothing to hang your hat on there. Yeah, you know.
He's trying his best with what he's given, which is nothing.
And you kind of have a lot of times of that with Kane. I mean, there's so many lame ones. I mean, Team Hell No was such a revelation. The reason why that was so great is because that was probably the first time in, God, it must have felt like years when it was like, God, yes, Kane is funny and personable and a great storyteller.
What a waste, all those years.
Yeah.
Not taking advantage of that.
Such a drought.
Because just before he did Team Hell No, he was evil Demon Kane feuding with John Cena when he told John Cena to embrace the hate, John. I hate everyone, so you should too.
Cena made out with Zack Ryder's girlfriend, and then Kane appears on the Titantron like, wow, John, I thought I was sick. But not even I would stoop that low to make out with your best friend's girl.
So yeah, I mean, he obviously feels strongly about that. Like, he will, of course, you know, electrocute a man's testicles. He will tombstone an old woman. He will set people on fire. I ain't touching no guy's girl, though, okay? He's got a bro code.
Not unless I force her to marry me first.
Then, of course, she's her property. I mean, I won the match fair and square.
Yeah.
You can read the contract, you know. I kind of feel like I'm really glad that you saw Team Hell No, and you did get to see Kane having some fun moments with the Authority and Seth Rollins, because I think that a lot of people have a real negative opinion of Kane. I think if you ask a lot of people, they're like, oh, fucking Kane, like, you know, oh, boring match.
He's like
fucking...
another big show. Like,
yeah, and I
That's
hate
shocking to
it
me.
is. And I hope that you have, through this, managed to gain... I mean, were you surprised to see he had this backstory, or was it expected that he had all this around him?
I knew he had a backstory because, like, obviously when we started this podcast, I was well aware that it was Kane and The Undertaker that were the kind of the main two weird, fucking, extensive backstories. But I didn't think they would be good. It's like an interest. I know it's silly, but it is like a genuinely intriguing story that they gave him.
What is it that makes Kane your favourite wrestler, Adam?
Oh, I'd be lying if I said that nostalgia wasn't a part of it, because, you know, a lot of his stuff doesn't hold up. Like, even his big feud with The Undertaker, a lot of that's crap.
Yeah.
And, you know, you really have to sort of sit through a lot of garbage to get to all the golden moments of Kane. But it's just that he was such, and still is, like, one of the most unique characters you've ever had in wrestling. Like, how many people have had that look and that story and that sort of mysticism surrounding them, and has been through, like, the whole gamut of characters over his career. He's always been Kane, but he's done, like, ridiculous over-the-top evil Kane. He's done goofy, like, I can have a good time.
He can do
Kane,
everything.
like...
He can do a bit of comedy. He can do a bit of drama. You mean you can feel sympathy for the guy. You can have a laugh at his expense.
But you can be terrified of him
yeah,
as well.
I think that that's a real important thing about Kane, is the fact that he has that range. And I think the most important thing before we, you know, wrap up and get into our tweets, Glenn Jacobs is the man. Do you know much about Kane IRL?
All I know is that he's a genuinely clever guy. I don't know what evidence there is for that. I just know that he is considered... there was an interview with someone, I can't remember who it was a table for three or something, where someone was asked who they think is the cleverest person in wrestling, and they said, it's known throughout WWE, Glenn Jacobs, by far and away the smartest guy in wrestling.
Kane is literally he is the smartest guy. Mick Foley wrote in his book about how him and Kane used to trade, because Foley loves the American Revolution, and they used to trade books about history books about stuff about the American Revolution and politics at the time. Daniel Bryan, who's obviously big into his politics and stuff as well. Apparently, him and Kane, they used to have these long discussions about it. Kane's not just a for show smart guys and guy reading a few books or something like that. Kane does actually have almost a life outside of wrestling that revolves around his interests. He is massively into economics.
Isn't that what his degree is in?
Yeah, he's kind of like a Ron Swanson in a way, that he knows loads about economics, and he believes in small government. He's apparently thought about running for office on many occasions.
Wow.
He's really actively involved in the community. I think it's Austrian, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Here we go. Just so you can see this, Joe, this is Kane, completely shoot here.
This is over an hour-long lecture from Glenn Jacobs on Austrian Economics. He looks a little bit like Penn Jillette here, I think.
State senator this morning, and he asked me...
He's got glasses on!
And a little ponytail,
and a
yeah.
little ponytail, and he's dressed as Corporate Kane.
Yep, that's who he is, mate. God, he looks so much like Penn Jillette there, doesn't he? Jesus.
Like you become interested in finance and economics? That's actually a very good question.
I watched about half of this one evening, I think.
All of it.
I just I am so fascinated when people have a life outside of wrestling like that.
That's why people like Cesaro are so interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Xavier Woods as well, with his PhD.
It's
Exactly.
just you know what? If you showed anyone like Kane, they kind of go, it's one of those big, tall, dumb wrestler kind of guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? There he is fucking talking about Austrian economics and small government. And, he's obviously got political opinions and you're not going to agree with everything. But it's just, when someone is that well read and that kind of has an ability to speak, and he has a real passion for it as well. And I love the fact that he could probably go and run for office, but he's still hanging around in wrestling. I don't think it's just there for a paycheck. I do think he genuinely loves it. I think he genuinely wants to help the next generation. I think that if Kane can help the likes of Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin know what it means to be a big guy, because there's an art to that.
Oh, yeah.
And it ain't easy. And, there's a lot of big men have come and went, and Kane's not even the biggest of them, but he's had the most longevity. And that's because of him knowing his shit. He's a smart fucking guy. And I just think, there's a lot to the man. A lot to Glenn Jacobs. I mean, what are your final thoughts on Kane?
I like him. I do feel like Glenn Jacobs, Kane, I feel he's very talented. And I like the fact that he puts out his knee when he gets the pedigree and shit like that. That he's
smart man.
He's thought ahead. And I know he's not the greatest wrestler in the world. In fact, far from it. But in terms of performing, he's got skill and ability that a lot of my favourite wrestlers don't have, actually.
Yeah. So you're happy to have learned about Kane?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think it just goes to show, because so much shit has happened to Kane. So many and we looked at the worst there, to be honest, okay? But the fact you can still come away and know it's like, hey, he didn't write that shit. He just performed it to the best of his ability. Yeah. And imagine how cringy it fucking would have been if during all... I mean... whatever about the Lita storyline with the fucking miscarriage and all that, but I mean, he did tears and all that shit when they actually revealed it on screen, and he had him beat up the doctors going, why? And all, he fucking tries. He's a performer. You know what? He is a performer. It's been a blast talking about Kane. Let's look at some of your tweets and Facebook posts. It's time to look at more of your opinions on How to Kane.
I grew up locked in a basement, suffering severe psychological and emotional scarring when my brother set my parents on fire. From there, I shifted around among a series of mental institutions until I was grown, at which point I buried my brother alive. Twice. Since then, I've set a couple of people on fire and abducted various coworkers. Oh, and I once electrocuted a man's testicles. Years ago, I had a girlfriend named Katie, but let's just say that didn't turn out so well. My real father is a guy named Paul Bearer, who I recently trapped in a meat locker. I've been married, divorced. broke up my ex-wife's wedding, and tombstoned the priest. And for reasons never quite explained, I have an unhealthy obsession with torturing Pete Rose.
Thank you so much to everyone who sent in all these amazing tweets about Kane. Kane was, I think, one of the wrestlers we got the most response to, because I think nearly everyone who's a long-term fan had a memory of Kane to come in. And I'll tell you right now, the phrases "when I was young" or "in school" or "playground" have appeared in these tweets more than like any other one. So it's obviously there's a lot of people who got a lot of a big sweet spot for Kane in there, which is lovely to see.
It is, it's nice.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So our first tweet comes from our illustrator, Dan Swanton, who says, "When I was a kid, I thought Kane was like a T-Rex in a man's body." And I have no idea what he means by that.
I mean, Kane was always quite like, he had big muscles and he was bulging, you know.
Ripped.
He was a lot more so than The Undertaker. Because I remember Kane's arms always had these big fucking muscles. And yeah, particularly when he was Vest Kane, he had looked like a fucking powerhouse. I can get that.
There's a reason Triple H could vaguely pass as Kane, and that's because of those big arms.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You said that Kane was Dan's favourite wrestler growing up.
Yeah, it was. He found him terrifying and also loved the fact that he was kind of misunderstood outcast, which I think he identified with a lot.
Because usually we have to have a bit of a chat with Dan about kind of ideas for the picture, and like that was just literally straight away. It's like, you know Kane. You know why you like Kane, why people like Kane, and that picture is just fucking beautiful. Yeah. I love it.
From Brutal Drummer, it's funny, you know, we were talking about unmasking Kane and your little figurine and whether or not you want to take it off. Well, Brutal Drummer says, "I was so curious about what he looked like that I actually tried to cut the mask off a Kane action figure." Which I can only imagine was very dangerous and unsupervised by parents.
I had a friend that did that with a screwdriver.
Really?
Like, he got a flathead a flathead screwdriver, one of the huge, massive ones with the long handle, jammed it in the side, and like for ages just like shoved it in there and pulled it off to reveal just like a match of plastic underneath.
I thought WWF officials would come to your house and take you out. No! And I tell you one thing we definitely did do in my house, me and my brother, was when we got WrestleMania 2000 on the N64, which like No Mercy, which we played for How to Video Games, you could take off, masks, you could edit all of the wrestlers in the roster, and the first thing we're like, oh my god, you can edit all the wrestlers, and we kind of turned and looked like, do you know what this means? Like, yes. And like went over to Kane, it's like went to masks, like it says mask Kane 1, we went to mask none. We're like, just like loads of shadows over his head. Like, damn it! Like, those bastards!
I wonder what like kids were thinking when they tried to cut off the mask, as if like the WWE were like, you know what we'll do? We'll design the real Kane's actual face, but underneath the mask, and you have to cut it off, but it will be legit Glenn Jacobs underneath.
It's like the idea of like one of those kind of marketing meetings like Beyond the Mat. It's like kids like to destroy things.
It's a cool
Boys love screwdrivers. So.
The FBK 13 says, "Connection with Taker is a mixed blessing. It got him instantly over, but he never truly escaped his shadow."
I disagree with that.
You
I
reckon?
think like you can't have Kane without the Undertaker because he will always be so inherently tied to him. But I don't think that means he's been in his shadow. Like Kane is definitely his own character.
No, I think they're like tea and coffee. They're intrinsically linked, but you can have both on their own.
Yeah.
Because I must say, watching it from my perspective, of corporate Kane and the Undertaker comes out for the occasional pay-per-view, I would never have guessed that they were brothers. I mean, they never talk about it now.
I think it's because they've done it now to the extreme. Like, they've literally had, like, the final battle. Like,
to the point where they'll never mention it again.
Pretty much. I mean, actually, funny enough, though, when Undertaker came back for the 900th episode of SmackDown this last week, after the cameras went off the air, they did a thing with Undertaker and Kane. They did, like, an exit together, and everyone, like, went mad for it. So
wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's cool. FT Punk says, "I was 8 when Kane debuted, and it scared the shit out of me. I cried and had dreams about him burning down my house."
Oh.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think, initially, before they revealed that it was Undertaker that did it, it was the idea of this, like, pyromaniac who was just, like, one thing in life. He wanted to kill his brother.
Yeah,
and, like,
just coming to get you. That's his whole gimmick.
And, like, we watched, when Kane was first on the TV screens, like, we watched him beating up the young Hardy Boys. You know, like, he would come out and he would just destroy people. Like, he would no-sell everything. They would punch him, he wouldn't react. Just pick them up, he would throw them like they were nothing. And, like, you see that a lot now. Guys are like, oh god, this is scary strength. But, back then, Kane was... even by 1997, 1998 standards, they were like kind of going like, this guy's unlike anything we've ever seen before. And they were right. They had not seen anyone like that before. You know, he was unique.
I thought I'd include this one because it's complete polar opposite to, I think, all our opinions, which is from Habit the Babbit, who says, big man with a cool look and nothing else. Never had a standout match in 20 years and ruins every storyline he touches.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I don't know how Kane's responsible for ruining storylines. Like,
Yeah.
You know, it's not his fault. It's always him trying to make the best of a bad
Yeah.
situation. I mean, I think that's, you know, you're not going to turn around and...
I really hope he didn't suggest the Katie Vick idea or the
No,
Lisa idea.
I don't.
Hey guys, I
That's
think it'd be
all
really
Vince.
cool if we do this.
Honestly,
So Vince.
he totally just... For me, he's the epitome of a team player. You know, Kane has done some fucking goofy shit that he probably shouldn't have done. And I don't think it's his fault. But I mean, I do think if you are someone who is a fan of wrestling for the matches and the matches alone, then Kane's probably not going to be your guy.
Completely agree there, yeah.
That's true. But I think you should still have respect for the fact that, like, I mean, he's never taken a break from WWE.
Yeah.
Since his debut.
He's had the odd injury here and there, but even compared to the big shows, taking big sabbaticals,
Yeah.
Kane's been there. Kane,
That's amazing.
he's, I think, of anyone on the roster, who's on the active roster, he's had more matches
Yeah, that's
than
right.
anyone.
Including house shows and everything.
And
That's
even like
incredible.
2013, I think he had the record for the most number of matches in a year.
Yeah.
Guy in his
Considering-
late 40s at the time was putting out more matches than anyone else. Like,
Considering his whole economics thing and the fact that he's like really intelligent, could clearly
Oh,
have
you can walk
all
away.
these careers
Yeah,
at any
for
point.
sure.
he
whenever.
could walk away, write a book, run for office, and
yeah,
make a career out of
If
that.
he's going to do that, looks like he'd do it at the same time as being a wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do what Rhino's doing.
It shows that he obviously has a love for doing it.
That's
Absolutely.
nice.
Yeah.
One thing that kept popping up into our timeline, which I really hope expert Adam can tell me about as both an expert of Kane and coffee, is people keep sending in, it has nothing to do with coffee.
Yeah, that's right. There's an amazing, and I would strongly implore you to go and check out this storyline after we're done recording because I think you'll enjoy it. So back in late 2000s, Chris Jericho's hanging around backstage one day, just making himself a cup of coffee at the catering table. Turns around and Kane's just right behind him, and he just bumps into him like, "Oh, sorry, champ. Hope that coffee didn't burn you." Like, right. And Kane, who's like a fucking prick heel at the time, gets like all huffy about it. Like, you know, I've got a fucking burnt face, mate. Why would you say that? Like, getting really sensitive.
He's having a go!
And like all the commentary is like, can you believe this whole thing started with a cup of coffee? Like, they just keep going on about it.
Folks, this one started over coffee.
And what the guys on Twitter are referencing there is that Kane, like, really impassioned in the ring one night, was like, "You think this is about coffee?"
You know what? Kane rarely needed an excuse to do an angle. Like, there was a time where he betrayed The Undertaker for like the 90th time, and his rationale was, "Why did I choke slam my brother? I am a monster." Alright, you're heel now, I guess. Like, that's it. You know, not many people could get away with that, like, but Kane can. And we got one or two ones here over on facebook.com/howtowrestling, where we always, of course, appreciate your longer form answers. Several passionate essays from wordsmiths here. Noah Leatherhead sending us a message saying, "Hey, Kevin and Jo. One of the reasons I love Kane is I met one of my best friends in primary school because he was called Kane, and of all things, we bonded over wrestling. That's a big thanks to him helping a little nervous Noah make some friends." There's a lot of people who kind of feel like they could relate to Kane.
Yeah, he's the outcast.
Yeah, I was related a little bit to Kane and also Mankind for that very reason. It's kind of like, okay, I'm a bit different, but like that's a good thing.
It does seem to me, from what I've heard, that kind of it's a generational thing in terms of which outcast is the one you identify with coming of age. Like for Kevin's generation, it seems to be Mankind. Obviously, Adam, you're my age, a bit younger, and same age as Dan, in that he's the outcast for like our age group.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
It's awesome. Darren Rayner with a really, really brilliant point here. Kane is the Phil Mitchell of wrestling. He's been with the same company for so long that he's been some crazy things, both good and bad. He holds the record for the most WWF appearances, and I've never heard anyone say a bad word against him in an interview. The character himself is simply a monster who wants to be human, but a series of betrayals have made him hate the world.
I'm sorry, we're both.
It's a
still laughing
tragedy,
at Phil
really.
Mitchell.
Me and Joe still aren't over that opening sentence.
Phil Mitchell, a series of betrayals have made him hate the world.
Want so bad to see bald Kane with Phil Mitchell's face, and then have Undertaker with Grant Mitchell's face.
And Brian Zane from Wrestling With Regret chiming in here. Kane was the first wrestler who really held my attention when I started to watch wrestling. As a brooding teenager with a self-esteem issue, Kane's story arc as someone who started off as being ostracized by society, but eventually befriended by others, really resonated with me. And of course, the badass appearance and entrance music always helped hook me in too. It was once tradition of mine to play as Kane in the first match I would play in every new WWF or WWE game. I will say, having seen it live, when Kane's pyro goes off, and that was in the coldest fucking building in the world with all that fucking AC when I saw it WrestleMania 25, and I swear to you, when his pyro went off, the entire place was hot, and we weren't even that near the entranceway. When his pyro goes off,
imagine standing in it.
Yeah.
Like,
there was actually one moment once, I think it was Jonathan Coachman, he was on commentary when the commentary desk used to be near the announceway, and Kane's pyro went off, and he literally, his headset came off, and he fell over the table. I'm like, Jesus! I fucking love it. It has been a blast talking about Kane. Adam, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise, your love, and your joy of Kane. It's always a pleasure to have you here podcasting with us. But thank you so much. Isn't it great showing you people wrestling?
Yeah, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm genuinely honoured that I'm the first person to be on this show that isn't you two. So
yeah,
should be.
You're, not only are you next, you're first. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of How To Wrestling. It's been an absolute blast talking about How To Kane and hopefully gaining an insight into the Big Red Machine and his ridiculous backstory and catalogue of calamitous events. We are, for our next episode, going to delve into someone who's quite a familiar face in the modern product and probably my favourite personality in wrestling of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, our next episode is going to be about Paul Heyman, the advocate for the beast incarnate, but so much more. Our next episode, hashtag How To Paul Heyman, where hopefully Joe's not going to learn about just the advocate Paul Heyman, but learn about the man behind ECW, Paul E. Dangerously, how a man started off taking pictures of wrestlers to running his own company to now being a guy who's running his own advertising company. Along the way, he's made a lot of friends and he's made a lot of enemies, and he has also had as well amazing promos and interviews and segments. We want to get all of it because we're going to be watching his documentary that's available on the network and going through his entire life story, but obviously there's some gruesome details omitted along the way. There are people out there, wrestlers, who want nothing more than Paul Heyman to suffer a long, cold, miserable death and be buried in a pauper's grave. Why is that? Let us know using the hashtag HowToPaulHeyman. Is he the creative genius of wrestling, or is he overblown nonsense? I can't wait to hear some of your thoughts. But thank you everyone for listening to this episode of How To Wrestling. And as always, if you're listening on SoundCloud, iTunes, or on Stitcher, be sure to leave a rating or review and subscribe so you can get all of our episodes directly to you. And of course, make sure you're following on Twitter at How To Wrestling and giving us some tweets for our new episode using the hashtag.
And you can find us on Facebook, so it's facebook.com/How To Wrestling. We always appreciate getting any messages or comments from you guys on any upcoming topics or anything at all. We just love your input. And you can find us on Patreon. We have a couple of different tiers depending on your budget or preference. We're starting at $1 if you just want to help support the show. We really appreciate every penny. Thanks so much. For $5, you can get our entire backlog of pay-per-view reviews. And they're at least an episode long, and they date back all the way to SummerSlam 2015. Seems so long ago.
15 episodes are up now.
That's amazing.
15 whole episodes for a mere $5.
That's fantastic.
If you want to find out what Joe's opinions were, or my opinions on the last, over a year's worth now of wrestling pay-per-views and follow along the current product, it's certainly the most unique set of pay-per-view reviews that are available on the internet today. You can, of course, pledge $10 a month if you want to support us and get access to our monthly live stream, and you want to be like Alex Thompson, who made a fucking barn burner of a request with How To Kane, or like Russell Kidd, who's requested How To Paul Heyman. For $50, you can request an episode and help sheer the good ship of How To Wrestling and let Joe know what amazing wrestlers she has to find out about next. But thank you everyone who supports us on Patreon. We really appreciate your support. support and helping the podcast grow. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. If you have anything, of course, that you'd want to plug.
Well, if you're listening to this and we've piqued your curiosity about any of the matches from the Attitude Era involving Kane, you should go and check out mine and Kevin's other show, AEPodcast, where you can hear us talking about these kind of matches in a bit more detail. Perhaps you've just found out about wrestling and you're kind of interested in the Attitude Era. Start off from the beginning of our show and we'll go through the whole thing from beginning to end with you.
And we pull it over hot coals. Hotter than Kane, seriously. And if you're not interested in looking at the Attitude Era, I will recommend, of course, me and Adam sitting down to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge.
That's a great
I only
great
say because
episode.
it's come up on Dave now, the new series.
Really?
8 new bust-ass competitors.
No excuse.
I'm just saying, no
So
excuse,
good.
folks, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions to How To Kane. We'll see you next time for hashtag How To Paul Heyman. Thanks again to Adam for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on How To Wrestling.
See ya.